Vlad. Vlad gets one of them. Vlad's able to get two of them on Vlad. He's going to survive on the back end of it, but they're going to be able to kill the Anivia. And there's two dead on the side of CCW. Can they get more? There's the Vlad. Can they get the knockup on Asthmatic Boy? Can he get the blast kill? No, he can't. He's going to fall incredibly low. They're going to keep going in. Team Shooter is going to be able to get the root. They're going to try to find more. They're going to find everyone. But there's the kill. Unbound. He's doing it all. Unbound is doing it all. Give it out. Unbound. Unbound's killing them all. Unbound is winning this game.
Okay. You guys good?
They're definitely gonna get it, but I think we win this one, guys.
Nice. Oh my god. Get it, get it, get it, get it!
Like, you know where, like, the cleavage is, where, like, the boots touch? Or supposed to touch?
No, I've never touched him.
Cat Everfrost used knockdown quite hit. There goes a 5-man shield there. Fresh Rack's going to get caught up in the baby cage. That's going to be a 3-man shockwave in the backline with a big face breaker. That's going to be a showstopper right there. That's
Can't get slowed when he was in Pike's Eve. I've taken. Nice. Okay. Okay then. I'm gonna try to get you the penta, honestly. You have one more? You can't die with this. It's gonna get dogged.
You can go. I mean, I have flash in a second.
Oh my god! He teleports on the side of CCW. They might try to go for a pick here. Fox Prime has to be careful. Doesn't know they're all there. This could be the pick they want, but you have to be careful as well, though. They're gonna burst him down. Fox Prime dies before anyone else can go in. They don't get the second call of the force god. And here we go. Here comes the Vlad. Keep an eye on the Vlad. Vlad on the back line. There's a double knockout. Keep an eye on the Vlad. Vlad gets one of them. Vlad's able to get two of them on Vlad. He's gonna survive on the back end of it, but they're gonna be able to kill the Anivia. And there's two.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's broadcast of the Risen Divine League, where we are going to be broadcasting our Week 5 matchup between the Team Ambition Vikings and Purdue Varsity. My name is Gordo. I am joined tonight on the cast by Slayer and Bonfire. How are you doing tonight, gentlemen?
I'm just super excited to get back for some Divine League action, and it's always fun. I mean, I know Team Ambition Vikings, it's a different look team, Gordo, but there's still some staple parts of this squad that are coming back as defending champions from the summer split. So finally getting to see them before we get into playoffs, essentially, is going to be very exciting action to watch.
Yeah, moving on to that as well. Purdue Varsity, this is a must-win match for them. You know, starting off 0-2, it feels like they're going to need to win this one if they have any shot at going into playoffs. So, looking at 2-0 versus 0-2, you might not think this has any stakes, but this late into the regular season, most matches have some sort of stakes, whether it's seeding, making it into playoffs at all. So, this is going to be a pretty decisive match.
Yeah, absolutely. Those 4 game round robins, they really can swing pretty heavily based on 1 or 2 matchups, especially with only 6 teams now making it towards our bracket stage as we round out the groups starting next week. So definitely a must-win matchup for Purdue Varsity up against a team that has a couple familiar faces on it and has been having quite the performance there in the form of TA Vikings. Bonfire, who are you going to be looking at to really step up here for Purdue Varsity this week?
Well, when you look at Purdue Varsity, they definitely have a lot of good pieces. I think that a lot of people are surprised that they started off 0-2. When you look at their roster, I think you were expecting a lot better from the squad. You look at Jopa, TL Swag, Hydronite. These are all players that you expect to be performing better. But at the end of the day, it is only 2 matches, so they do have a chance to turn it around. But I do expect TL Swag to have a big impact in the mid lane, as he's done in the past.
And Slayer over on the other side, Team Ambition Vikings, they're going to be coming into this one looking to keep their win streak going. Who are you on the lookout for on the Rift today?
I mean, whenever you're talking about a high-level Team Ambition squad, Gordo, everything stops and starts with Mark Boots in the mid lane. Not only because he's just such a well-rounded champion pool with a couple of really nice picks that he's already flashed in the Divine League, but he's also, coaching and managing this team. So he's really that full-blooded leader of this squad. It's the reason why they've, been so successful. But I'd also argue been so resilient. To have a guy like that at your helm is so vital. And hey, it's why they're undefeated so far through Divine Fall Split, and likely in my mind going to be moving to a 3-0 mark.
All right, it looks like we're getting about ready to get into draft here pretty soon. So, really quick before we send it over there, I know there's going to be a couple of bans lost here due to some last minute substitutions. Starting with Slayer, how do you guys think that's going to affect the upcoming draft?
I think it just means you're really going to have to prioritize try and take away champion pools for only really one of the members of Team Ambition Vikings, which is already such a tough task with the fact this roster is so stacked.
Yeah, they're shooting themselves in the foot. I think that when you're playing a team like Team Ambition Vikings, you need everything on your side in order to even give yourself a close win. So I think by losing 4 of those bans, it gets very difficult for the side of Purdue Varsity to get that win that they need so much. I also want to say TL Swag actually not playing in the game, being subbed out for Fox. So someone who I was expecting to make a big impact, not going to be playing, could also really affect their chances at winning.
Yeah, definitely going to be an interesting one to watch here. We're going to send it over to the draft right now, so I will catch you guys after that one is finished up. Take it away, Slayer and Bonfire.
Always a little bit somber saying, oh, goodbye to Gordo, but that does mean we're getting set to get into this draft for a very intriguing game one between Team Ambition Vikings and Purdue University. Like we mentioned, this is kind of the matchup of let's punch our ticket to playoffs on your blue side here, and let's make sure we can still get into playoffs on your red side here with Purdue Varsity. The latter will be losing 2 bans, and you can already see them coming through in this first game here. But on the other side, a couple of AP threats going to be taken away by the Vikings.
Yeah, I think Karthus was something that we had seen in pro play. It was used by Levi in that incredible base defense from GAM Esports against Top Esports. So I think the damage from Karthus is now being respected as it should be. If you leave Karthus unchecked in the jungle, those ultimates late game can really just be so decisive. So it looks like Team Ambition Vikings don't really want to take a chance with that. Meanwhile, Vigar pretty much always able to make an impact. I'm not surprised to see him in the ban pool.
Every time somebody brings up that Karthus, that game now for GAM, I'm reminded by the fact that they actually should have won that game. But that's a whole nother discussion revolving around LOL bugs. No, we really do not. As it looks like Purdue Varsity, they're getting through. I believe so. The ruling is that they have they've lost 4 bans total for this whole series. I'm curious to see if they got to choose whether they want to do 2 for the first game and then 2 for the second game, maybe. But it looks like so far that it might just be that they're going to take all 4 bans in this game. Yeah, so we are going to see Team Mission Vikings come away with their... Wow. It's three mages in a row. Is actually, sorry, no, I'm right. Here they go. Oh, no, I'm being told by producers that Timer is going to be a placeholder ban. So there's still and Shaco is the other one. So they're still giving away free bans. That means that Purdue Varsity, they're only going to have one ban in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about how difficult that makes it, especially going against Team Ambition Vikings, because look at that. You just have to give up the Yuumi on blue side. Yuumi has a 100% win rate at Worlds right now in the group stage, and she's just been an absolute menace on the pro play scene and in solo queue. But to no surprise, I think you see the Lucian going against it. Lucian Nami is a really good bot lane answer to the Sivir Yuumi.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to say that Sivir Yuumi is 1A of bot lane duos right now on 12.19, you can make a very serious argument that Lucian Nami is 1B in that respective regard, maybe with a bit of a Felios and Nautilus sprinkled in as that counter argument. Regardless, we're going to get pretty chalk meta picks. The Sivir will be hovered and I have to assume locked in here for Loki Dosi, so... You're going to have a staple veteran of Divine League, Turk, helming the Yuumi, which gets memed on as a pick where you can play with one hand Bonfire. But at this high level, the skill curve for Yuumi makes her just so impactful, especially in the Divine League.
Yeah, I think you see Yumi's at this high of level jumping on somebody low health, getting an all-important ult out. But I think more importantly, it's just the poke that you're able to do with Yuumi. The damage per gold that you're able to generate on this champion is unbelievable. And the poke that you're able to do before fights start is just also unbelievable. Again, we see the Maokai picked up from Team Ambition Vikings, but I don't hate what Purdue Varsity is doing. With all these missing bans, you would expect them to just kind of get gapped in the draft phase. But by picking up this Jax, you're still staying competitive in the top side. You're giving a lot of threat onto this Maokai who really just wants to farm up for team fights. And so, honestly, I don't hate what Purdue Varsity is doing so far.
Yeah, the Jax is certainly intriguing because you're blinding it, right? So you leave yourself up for some susceptible counter picks. It'll be very intriguing. Yeah, possibly, which it will be very intriguing to see how Flying Oyster counters that. But, you know, I remember the last time we were doing a Divine League game, Bonfire, and we said on one side of the draft, man, those are a bunch of really strong meta picks, and then they ended up losing. Team Vision Vikings, they're doing a very similar style so far with the Maokai, Sivir, and Yuumi. Arguably, you could probably argue top pick at their respective role in the game right now.
Yeah, I think Team Ambition Vikings comp is so incredibly strong, but again, I don't hate Purdue Varsity. It also puts Team Ambition Vikings in a difficult position because if they wanted to flex that Maokai top, suddenly it doesn't look nearly as good as it possibly was before. I think Jax fares pretty comfortably into the Maokai, and so you really have to put it in the jungle, I'd imagine, which again, you're correct, it does give Flying Oyster that ability of a counter pick for free onto Jax. But it also gives Purdue Varsity knowledge that, hey, Maokai's going to the jungle. Now we can counterpick that jungler for free. So, again, with this deficit they're at, I still am enjoying what Purdue Varsity is doing. Meanwhile, looking at the bans, also taking that Azure away, that's another one of those meta picks that you really don't want to just give over for free to Team Ambition Vikings.
Great points to make there, Bonfire, is we did get to see the one major ban from Purdue Varsity, and it's another pick that I think you would certainly argue is the cream of the crop when it comes to mid lane picks. They take away the Azir from Mark Boots, and as we get into the second phase of picks here, the new Luxindra is locked in, and boy, is she... you know how she's described to me, Bonfire, in the most perfect way? She is now Veigar 2.0.
Yeah, 100%. She's a scaling champion. She still has that gamer button like she did before, except for more powerful with her ultimate. So she can be incredibly strong in the late game. No longer as much of a lane bully. And so with Jax, also not really much of a lane bully. I think you kind of have to be concerned of winning lanes if you're Purdue Varsity. But you can always play through bot, and so I think that definitely lends the hand. I also kind of want to see a tank on Purdue Varsity. Hopefully the Sejuani would be a fantastic pick for them. Something of that sort, because right now they're missing a little bit of that front line, and Sivir will just chew through that entire team comp right now.
Well, on the other side, Team Mission Vikings are rounding out their composition, and it looks like they're going to lock in Akali and Viego, which does actually mean that it's going to be Flying Oyster on the Maokai. Feels comfortable enough going into the Jax. that they're going to send the heartbroken Shadow Isles King himself into the hands of a bit bad.
Yeah, and I think it gives Purdue Varsity an opportunity to possibly pick up the fiddle. I would be very surprised if this were to come through. No, it looks like it's going to be something a bit more meta. I would like them out. Yep, it is going to be the Hecarim pick. I think Hecarim, an incredibly strong jungler. I'm actually surprised it even dropped this far down. And honestly, for losing 2 bans, Purdue Varsity comes out not too worse for wear.
Yeah, both these compositions certainly have some clear strengths that we are going to break down. But to break down these compositions a little bit more, we're gonna bring Gordo back in. I miss Gordo. We gotta get him back over
Gotta get
here.
Gordo back.
Let's bring Gordo back in here so that we can talk about both these compositions from the 2 teams respectively. A couple of intriguing picks here, nonetheless. I think Gordo might be stuck in the Shadow Isle. So Bonfire, I'll ask you the first question very quickly.
There's
here we
the
go.
transition.
Hey.
Back, boys.
Welcome back,
everybody.
Gordo. Two intriguing, very meta-conscious compositions we have for game 1, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looks like a couple of Worlds drafts going down over here on the side of my screen. Champions that have been getting picked all over the place. Even the Syndra seeing a little bit of Worlds performance, although that's without the rework with the Splinters of Wrath and everything. Really like you describing that as the Vigar 2.0. Really also like seeing a real classic team fight composition coming out of TA Vikings here. How do you guys think you respond to that over on the side of Purdue Varsity? Let's start off with Bonfire.
Well, if you're Purdue Varsity, I think you really have to shut down a lot of the carry threats from the side of Team Ambition Vikings, right? We talk about that Sivir. She's just able to get unleashed with a Yumi on top of her. So difficult to kill her. And so in order to win these team fights, I think you need to kill the consistent damage. You also need to do a really good job of keeping your carries safe from the Akali and the Viego. But as a whole, I mean, Yumi's just such a strong champion. It gets so difficult. It's how do you even kill the Akali or the Viego when you have that Yumi on top of it? It just becomes really difficult for them. So they need to play front to back. They have good frontliners. They've got the Bruiser and Jax. They've got the tank Bruiserish of Hecarim. They have good CC on the team. They just need to make sure that they can keep their carries alive.
Yeah, and for me, Gordo, if you have a composition against you that is just very traditionally strong in the team fight, how do you counter it? Well, you just split them up. And luckily, Purdue Varsity have drafted a comp where not only can they split apart some of the pieces for the Team Ambition Viking squad, maybe pull away that Maokai to match this Jax or even the Akali, but you also have pick potential, right? When you pick this Hecarim. So you have a lot of really good 2-man pick plays that you can try and run through across the map so that when it comes to the mid game where team fights become the big topic, you could separate them and force them into favorable matchups for yourself. So it's really going to be on Purdue Varsity to utilize this Jax and get Spiral Claws ahead, and Hydra Knight is going to have to go for a lot of picks in the side lanes because, like you mentioned, if they group up, it's really hard to beat Sivir, Yumi, and a Maokai.
Yeah, absolutely is there. And so, gonna have to be looking to see if they can try to get some advantages through the lanes there. The bot lane is the one that you really have to look at with this Lucian Nami kind of intending to be that kind of lane dominant duo. But it looks like Spiral Claws over there in the top lane is leaning towards going for the
Ooh.
Ignite TP
Ooh.
setup. So, do you guys see any kind of angles for Hydra Knight to maybe move up towards the top lane, try to snowball the game that way? If we were talking about how it's a little bit of a weaker laning phase there through some of Purdue's composition, but Summoner spells seem to imply otherwise.
And you're also going to see the fact that Hydra Knight is likely going to start with a bot side clear, right? So he can probably rush for maybe you go blue red and then maybe blue red and Krugs and then maybe gank top, or you go for chickens red and blue and you path up towards top side so you can gank this Jax. But also on the other hand, it's a double-edged sword, right, Gordo? Because if you pick Ignite Teleport, you're also susceptible to a lot of ganks on your own. It's like when we talked about Camille's picking Ignite Teleport, it's like if you use that grapple hook, you're basically stuck in whatever gank possible that can come. And it's the same thing with Jax with being able to, he can still leap, but if you use that leap on top of Maokai at the wrong time, a bit bad is going to punish you 9 times out of 10 with First Blood for the Viking side instead.
Yeah, I also want to say I think that going Ignite onto the Jax it can be a little worrisome as well because when you're split pushing towards the end of the game, that's what's so strong about Jax is the ability to take towers, push waves in, and then just the ability to get out as well. You jump to a ward and then you flash away, and I really don't think anyone's catching you. And even if they do, you can just bonk them on the head with your lamppost, and you probably win that duel. So that's what's so strong about Jax. And then meanwhile, if you look on the other side, yes, you're negating the healing of Yumi with the Ignite, but that's only to an extent. I'm not sure if it's really something that is so important that you need to have. If it was going into a Silas or a Set or a Darius, yeah, I kind of understand it a bit more. But going into a Maokai and a Yumi, I definitely would have preferred Flash on Spiral Claws, especially because you're not going for a winning lane. It is interesting to see maybe Hydra Knight plays through the top lane, but I think that all of us would expect to see a flash instead of the ignite like you did end up going.
Well, we'll see how they end up navigating that one. And now it's time for the greatest part of the broadcast where we start throwing out our predictions and put our names on the line. We'll start off with Bonfire this time. Who do you have taking game number one, Team Ambition Vikings or Purdue Varsity?
I'll keep it quick. I want to win. I'm tired of losing my picks. Team Ambition Vikings. They're 2-0. Don't overthink it.
I will also keep it very quick right after Gordo. I refuse to pick against Mark Boots and Turk. I said they lose one game in last year's grand finals and they swept them. So I made one mistake then. Not going to make the mistake now. Give me Team Bishop Vikings.
Yeah, I'm going to be right with my two co-casters here. And adding to Mark Boots and Turk, I'm going to throw Bad's name in there as well. This guy's a veteran of a lot of these leagues. He's always playing on various Team Ambition rosters, pretty much split in and split out. And I think he's got what it takes to carry home the win with Mark Boots, Turk, and the others today. And with that said, we're going to throw to a quick break while we get loaded onto the Rift for game number one. But we will see you guys on the other side, so don't go anywhere.
Like, you know where like the cleavage is, where like the boobs touch? Or supposed to touch?
No, I've never touched a woman.
Cat Everfrost used not gonna quite hit. There goes a 5-man shield there. Bryce Rack's gonna get caught up in the baby cage. That's gonna be a 3-man shockwave in the backline with a big face breaker. That's gonna be a showstopper right there. That's
Can't get slowed when he was in Pike's Eve. I have taken. Nice. Okay. Okay, then. I'm gonna try to get you the penta, honestly. You never know. You can't die with this. It's gonna get dogged.
Can go. I mean, I have to flash in a second.
Oh my god! Of the teleports on the side of CCW. They might try to go for a pick here. Box Prime has to be careful. Doesn't know they're all there. This could be the pick they want. But you have to be careful as well, though. They're gonna burst him down. Box Prime dies before anyone else can go in. They don't get the second call of the force guy. And here we go. Here comes the Vlad. Keep an eye on the Vlad. Vlad on the back line. There's a double knockout. Keep an eye on the Vlad. Vlad gets one of them. Vlad's able to get two of them unbound. He's gonna survive on the back end of it, but they're gonna be able to kill the Anivia. And there's two dead on the side of CCW. Can they get more? There's the Vlad. Can they get the knockup on Asthmatic Boy? Can he get the blast kill? No, he can't. He's gonna fall incredibly low. They're gonna keep going in. Team Shooter is gonna be able to get the root. They're gonna try to find more. They're gonna find everyone. But there's the kill. Unbound. He's doing it all. Unbound is doing it all. Give it out. Unbound. Unbound's killing them all. Unbound is winning this game.
Okay.
That's good.
They're definitely gonna get it, but I think we win this one, guys.
Nice.
Oh my god.
Get it!
Welcome on to Summoner's Rift here for our Week 4 showcase matchup. Team Ambition Vikings on your blue side and Purdue University Varsity on your red side. We've gone through a very meta-calculated draft so far, but now that we hit Summoner's Rift Bonfire, hit me with some... What do you think with some of these Summoner choices and maybe some of the Rune choices? There's a couple that are already screaming out to me.
Yeah, I think for summoners, you're looking at First Strike on Lucian. That's pretty surprising when you're looking at a Lucian, but I think it also makes sense. You're going to get a lot of those first autos off onto the Sivir. Sivir likes to play a lot further back, and with that dash, you can get 2 autos off, get a full combo, get some extra money and extra damage. So, makes sense to me. I also think you're looking at the cleanse on Fard. On the Lucian, so I mean, look, it's different than what you might normally see in solo queue, but I don't think it's different bad. I think it's different good.
Well, yeah, certainly be intriguing to watch. It looks like Fard just wants to push. You know, Lucian's all about scaling up and becoming a mid-game power spike threat. What better way to do that than get some extra gold throughout the laning phase? Well, we're going to start having the minions pour into lanes here, and that means we're going to see 2 opposite starts here from our junglers. Bad will be on his bot side red buff, and we'll also see Hydra Knight, who I thought might start blue, is actually going to decide to start red. So, Bonfire, how do you think that might affect what lane he decides to prioritize first as an early game jungler?
I was about to say, I think it makes sense as well. You want to be going into the bot lane. You want to try to play through this Lucian Nami. And so by pathing bot lane, especially with the Viego pathing top, you're going to give yourself a favorable trade. The question is, does he go for it? Does he skip some camps? That's yet to be seen as we got some trading.
Oh my god. Summoners galore popped. Ignite down from Maximum, and Exhaust comes across from Turk, but nobody flashes forward. Nobody gets crazy aggressive. It's just a ton of trades back and forth. It looks like Loki Doki got the short end of the stick on that one, but once level 2s come across, that Yuumi should be able to heal Sivir up much further than the Lucian.
Yeah, with the Nami up though, I think that both of these bot laners are actually going to
Oh my god! We pan away. It's a flash Q forward, and Fard has first blooded Loki Doki. How about Purdue Varsity on the board first?
Substitute trying to make a big name for himself early on, showing why he deserves to be on the main roster. Fard making a early aggressive play. Loki Dosi just not respecting it. Had flash up, did not opt to use it, and that's a huge wave that you're gonna at least miss parts of.
That is a big number 4 in the CS department for Loki Dosi as they are able to trudge their way back towards the bottom lane, be able to catch some of it. On the top side, it looks like Spiral Claws has actually spotted out Bad's camp clear, and with the 2-set camp, he's just gonna jump right on top of him. Stun comes across for the Jax, and he's able to smite away the blue buff for health and others, and now turnbacks around. Bad lands a stun of his own. Q comes across, but they're still trading. Ignite pop. There's no flash on this Jax, but it doesn't matter. He drops Bad and has Counter-Strike pop right back up. Can he kill Gromp up for the extra health? He gets it, and he hops on out of there like nothing is wrong in the world. Purdue Varsity come out crazy in the early game.
Spiral Claw is just an absolute Jax master, knowing his limits right there. I think both of us thought that it could possibly turn out bad for him, but Loki Dosi might turn out bad for him.
Hydra Knight immediately gets Loki Dosi's flash out, despite the fact that he was able to cleanse the knockback from the Horsey. And we go to mid. Mark Boots trying to get some sort of lead back for his team, who is now staring down a 1K gold deficit at 4 minutes.
Yeah, I could not believe the Jax that was there, but Fox might be in trouble.
Oh my god, the action does not stop. Good start of the week there from Fox. He's able to flash to force Mark Boots under the turret from the Shuriken reach cast, and on the top side, Farcross just solo kill flying Ulster, and we go back towards the bot side again. Far may get his head taken off. There's another kill over for Loki Dosi, and it looks like reality is coming back for the Vikings here, as it's a double kill for the Sivir. There's a bit more of what we expect from the Team Ambition squad.
Yeah, Loki Dosi and Turk did not see what entirely happened there. As Fox in trouble again.
It's not over. Saturday, the weak force is bad off of the stun for the 2nd time in a row. A beautiful display of Syndra gameplay there, and he avoids another gank from Bad. And now I think Bonfire, break down everything that just happened. We'll start with the top lane exchange.
Yeah, we look topside here, Flying Oyster, just completely sitting in lane, not respecting Spiral Claws. And Spiral Claws actually does a fair amount of damage at this point. Able to just vault him on top of the head. Needle on the bot lane, Shitfart just trying to push it a little bit too far. Loki Dosi able to get that damage off, the Ignite taking him down. Ravens not able to trade that off onto the Nami. So trading across the entire map, and it will not stop.
And we come back to the action a little bit late. Mark Boots, with the help of Flying Oyster, has finally taken down Fox's Syndra. So we're back. I just said about, I don't know, a minute ago, it was a 1,000 gold lead for Purdue University. Well, it's swapped now. They are now dead even at gold, not even a minute and a half later.
Yeah, both of these teams aren't content with just finding their way into playoffs in their own simple way. They want to battle it out, battle to the death to see who goes into playoffs. And right now it's something really fun to see. I will say, I think Purdue Varsity kind of is very good into this with their scaling comp. You know, you've got the Jax, you've got the Syndra, so on the other side, obviously with the Sivir, you feel pretty comfortable, but the scaling is always going to help out Purdue Varsity.
Yep, I always like to use the analogy. It's a ticking time bomb for the Team Ambition Viking squad, at least in the bottom lane, but you talked about it. Jax skills up super well, so does Syndra, and it'll be very interesting to watch how this plays out, as Bad once again continues to be tormented in his topside jungle. He's spotted out, and that gives the green light to Hydra Knight to get a free Ocean Soul as, Spiral Claws. Okay. I didn't think he was that crazy, but he does cancel the back again, which basically guarantees this Drake for Purdue Varsity.
Yeah, just giving him the Hillsong treatment. Does not care about waves or anything else. It's all about a mental battle. It's the tilt that matters the most. I like it though right now, because Spiral Claws is just his own walking board, getting so much vision on where a bit bad is at every point in time. And that's exactly what you want if you're Hydra Knight, if you're Fox, if you're Fart, because now you have the green light. Hey, we know where Viego is. We're able to do drag. We're able to go for these ganks in the bot side, go for these big trades. And so I think Spiral Claws, he's 2-0 right now. He's got a little bit of a CS deficit, but a lot of that is just getting the vision onto the jungler, doing a fantastic job early game. Jax.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Bonfire, is we do see ultimates starting to come across for some of these players in the solo lanes. Be intriguing to see how those change out. The dynamic is, oh my gosh, exhaust has to be popped by Turk to protect Loki Dosi. This Lucian's starting to pack a punch with a couple of items in his belt.
Yeah, and that's why we talked about why it's so good into the Sivir Yumi. Ooh, I might have to stop now, though.
Mark Boots, look at the dashes, the flashing plays. Mark Boots executes Fox perfectly with perfect execution, but now Flying Oyster might be on the wrong side of it, as he is able to dodge out Unstoppable Onslaught, but it doesn't matter. Spiral Claws claims his 3rd kill of the game. Purdue Varsity say, you get a kill, we can do you one better.
Yeah, it's a 1-for-1 across the entire map, and I think both teams are actually fairly happy about it. None of the waves pushing too far in, so nobody's really losing out on too much on the other side. But I think that you're happy if you get the Jax fed, and you're also happy if you get the Akali fed. The right members are getting the kills if you're both sides of the rift. However, the bot side, Fard might be in trouble.
Perfectly timed ward by Fard, so a bit bad. Couldn't really line up that stun. It goes on cooldown, but he still is able to back off the Purdue Varsity bottom lane, which will open up Turk and company for some plays. But let's take a look at the replay on the top side really quick.
Yeah, Flying Oyster just pushed up a little bit too far, had the wave, thought he felt comfortable, did not see that the Hakurim was there, and that's always going to come out. And it's just so tilting if you're the Maokai. This is why in draft I talked about you might want to flex the Maokai into the jungle or the support role. Well, it wouldn't have been support because of the Yumi, but into the jungle because of how difficult of a lane you have into Jax. You saw the wave that he had built up. He thought there was no way that a gank could come across, and he could be more incorrect.
Mark Boots fears no man or horse, as seemingly jumps right on top of Hydra Knight, knowing Fox is on the other side of the wall, but it's just going to be traded over some extra damages. We get to another little lull state here, but the difference is now Team Ambition Vikings are actually helming a comfortable 1,000 gold lead themselves, and you can take a look at the gold graphs. There's an obvious reason why, Bonfire.
Yeah, a lot of it's in the mid lane. I think Fox is having a very difficult time of it as Hydra Knight just went down.
Wow, I hopefully maybe we get a look back at that, as a bit bad gets a huge kill as well in the jungle with the turret dive, and Fox is gonna get jumped on again. Mark Boots is just not allowing this Syndra any sort of room in this mid lane matchup.
Yeah, no room at all. Meanwhile, on the top side, Spiral Claws, I think this Maokai is actually starting to feel a bit more comfortable. Spiral Claws is never going to be in any real danger unless this Kali actually roams up. Hecarim is finding it out, so we might have a 2-on-2 on the top side.
There's Nature's Grasp popped. It's going to grab the Jax. He utilizes Counter-Strike and stuns Mark Boots perfectly, forcing him to take 2 turret shots, and that's enough to assuage any sort of play.
Yeah, it looked like something could possibly come out. Before I don't have a time to talk about it before it just becomes irrelevant, I do want to mention, in the bot side, you look at the turrets taken from Loki Dosi along with Turk. I think A Bit Bad did a fantastic job of pushing out the bot lane of Fard and Ravens fan Maximum. And how do you come back from that, right? That's 3 turret plates down. And look at this now. Hydra Knight actually feels pretty comfortable, tries to go in on the Raptors. A Bit Bad reads it just perfectly, and this is always going to favor A Bit Bad. Hydra Knight tries to get out, gets explode from the altar from A Bit Bad, and then a great flash from that Viego. Viego starting to get pretty big. Did not expect that damage this early on, but 1-1-0, 75 CS, doing a fantastic job keeping up in this game.
It looks like Bad is also going to opt for the Mythic of Old with Viego. We saw a switch off of Divine Summoner, but with that early lead, like you're talking about, also supporting a decent CS lead, opts in for Divine Summoner for that extra damage, so that'll be something to watch as we go on. As there is another Mythic also on the side of Team Ambition Vikings right now with the Kraken Slayer on the Sivir.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that they're leaving Fard all by himself in the bot lane. They might try to get something on Mark Boots. They roamed up Ravens fan Maximum to get this Herald. But again, Loki Dosi has just been taking turret plates left and right, getting pushes off, getting a CS advantage. And so it's so difficult as Fox might be in trouble.
Final Chapter forces Fox's flash out, and then Tidal Wave forces Mark Boots' flash out. So 2 support ultimates force 2 mid lane flashes. As you mentioned it, the Herald goes down to Purdue Varsity, and it's immediately utilized by Spiral Claws onto that top turret. He also proxies a wave on top of that for some extra gold in this already fed Jax, but Mark Boots is also fed pretty harshly himself, but he's not able to get the kill onto Fox until Ignite ticks through for Turk as he's executed with Unstoppable Onslaught by Hydra Knight. Another 1-for-1 bonfire.
Yeah, I think by roaming the Nami out, you are able to secure Fox a little bit more security. Obviously, he did end up still dying. But I will say the trade-off is, again, look at the bot lane. Loki Dosi has such a huge advantage, as we might have our first real fight right now.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be on top of Maximum, and A Bit Bad is able to catch out the Nami. There's the flash coming across. Viego so strong on his own, but he's immediately jumped on by 4, and Fard's going to execute him. The Yuumi has to run for the hills, but luckily Loki Dosi provides enough room with his first kill. A huge execute onto the Nami, but Fox sets up Scatter the Weak. The shutdowns will come across, though, and the Vikings are going to win this one heavily with an ace around the Dragon Pit.
Yeah, Flying Oysters throwing up the CFO banner himself. They feel like the underdogs, but they're stopping them like the #1 seed. They are an ace this early on, and in dominant fashion, only losing A Bit Bad into that fight. An unbelievable team fight right there. Just ignoring Loki Dosi. Purdue Varsity doesn't pay attention to the Sivir, and then by the time they do say, hey guys, we need to kill this Sivir, then you just look at Mark Boots doing so much damage. Both of them picking up 2 kills for themselves, and that's a 4-1 into Akali and a 5-1 into Sivir. This game is getting incredibly difficult for Purdue Varsity.
Talked about having the kills in the right places for Purdue Varsity early on, and yes, the Spirit Claws' Jax was able to be pretty effective, but he's not at that 1v9 team fight prowess part yet, and you can certainly say this Akali and Sivir might be already at that point at 13 minutes.
Yeah, and Spiral Claws as a champion will really never get to that 1v9 teamfight champion point. I think Jax can be incredibly strong, but he's much stronger as a sideline threat. The issue is the drag stacking will start to come for Team Ambition Vikings, I imagine, soon. And so they're going to drag them towards these objectives. You look at the Jax, he just wants to push in top lane, possibly get some waves for himself, force the rotations, but they're not doing that. They're just going for the drag right now. Fox with a little early poke damage, but it's not going to matter. They're going to sack this one, but at a certain point you have to fight, and Team Ambition Vikings in a very good position to force them to.
Yeah, great point to make there, Bonfire, as Team Ambition Vikings will secure the Cloud Drake, which gives us a Hextech Soul for this game one. Such an impactful soul that both teams will obviously have their eyes set on.
Yeah, I think if Hextech Soul, or at least a lot of Hextech Dragons, go over. Ooh, I might have to stop.
Ooh. Tidal Wave into a 2-man bubble, and Yuumi is caught off of the ropes from A Bit Bad, but he's able to trade it back over. Heartbreaker grabs himself a possession on this Lucian, and this Sivir is just too gosh darn fed, dominating for Loki Dosi as he takes down the Purdue Varsity support.
Yeah, they completely ignored Loki Dosi, and this is what they're reaping for it, getting so much in the bot side, the entire turret down in the bot side. I think like 4 of those were plates, and now Fox is going to feel the pain.
a bit bad, feeling super confident. Mark Boots as well, able to take some of the turret aggro, and it's traded beautifully. Another kill over for this Viego, and Hydra Knight is going to try and chase down and clean this thing up. Spirit Claws is right behind him. There's the E-popped for this Hecarim, but is he going to be able to find Viego in the fog? No, Viego's going to turn on top of him. Now with Loki Dosi in hand, the fear will create just enough of a distance, and Viego's shut down. Mark Boots will find the trade, but Spirit Claws has 2 kills, make it a third. This Jax is going crazy. He didn't win the first team fight Bonfire, but boy, did he just make up for it in droves.
Yeah, they were able to get themselves 4 kills right there. It was a little delayed. It didn't really look like a huge fight, but they just walked directly into Spiral Claws. You don't really expect that as the Jax. You expect damage to be coming from every single direction, but they all wanted a little boop boop from the lamp, and he said much obliged. Gets 4 kills. I believe 3 of them were for himself, and I think 1 of them went over to Fard. So a little, again, they're going on to the right carries. I think the only player that really is feeling left out right now is Fox. Everyone else on the map has some kills to their name, but that's really what you need if you're Purdue Varsity. This Jax is going to be the way they play through this game. Let's look at this again, because they have the initial pick, but I think Hydra Knight does a fantastic job just surviving. Gets the heal from the Nami, and then again, they're just not focusing Spiral Claws together. Spiral Claws in a one-on-one against Loki Dosi, always going to favor the Jax. Then it's Turk's turn to die. Meanwhile, on the backside of it, Fard was able to pick up the Akali, so they lose the Hecarim for it, but overall, a 4-for-1, yeah, we take those.
Nearly 2,000 gold worth of kills given over to Spiral Claws there with the shutdown onto Loki Dosi. And you mentioned as well, Mark Boots sporting another huge bounty also drops in that fight, and it amounts to Purdue Varsity. Yeah, sure, they still have objective bounties up, but they are in a lot better spot than they were before, but a bit bad is trying to make it worse. Surrounded by the enemy, Heartbreakers will force Fox to flash, but he will survive with just a sliver of health. Nature's Grass will allow Viego to get out, and it might even grab the Syndra. Nope, it's going to be a flash from Flying Oyster. We flash towards the mid lane, and Loki Dosi with Turk on his belt is able to force a couple of flashes out of the Nami, and Spiral Claws much further ahead than this Maokai, wants this duel any day of the week. Counter-Strike's going to come back up. He leaps on top of him. The Hecarim here for just a bit of extra support. Flying Oyster is able to get under his own turret, but at this point in the game, doesn't matter. Spiral Claws is on a rampage.
Yeah, but keep an eye on Loki Dosi pushing out right now. They need to be careful. They're going to get collapsed on. Loki Dosi does not favor it, apparently. With the 3v2, I thought they might have it, but I don't think anybody really wants to fight Spiral Claws, and with Mark Boots pushing in the bot side, no reason to. Overall, I think it was a delayed 1-for-1, 2-for-2. I think it was 1-for-1. Fox, again, unfortunately 0-6 at this point, not really getting what he wants onto this Syndra, but the scaling will be there. I cannot believe it's still Rift Herald. I was totally expecting to call that for a Barrack.
Yeah, it's still for Rift Herald. It's a 3v4 in favor of Purdue Varsity. The teleport is going to come across, though, for Flying Oyster, and Mark Boots is coming in for a flank. This could get dicey for Purdue Varsity. Hextech Proto Belt forward is able to land the Shuriken. There's a good fear from Hydra Knight, but it's not enough. He gets executed. There's 2 kills for Mark Boots. Ignite, flash auto, give him a third. This man is on a mission, and it's to the demise of Purdue Varsity.
Yeah, you get the Rift Herald, but it's really not a fun one. You lose 3 members for that, and that's just because Mark Boots is better. Played so incredibly well right there, getting all of the damage off with the Kali. You need to land your abilities. If you find yourself auto-attacking, you probably did something wrong. But when you land all of your abilities, you're able to blow everyone up, gets the ultimate onto 3 people, and just burns them all to the stake. A triple kill. That's an 8-2-3 Akali with 141 CS. That's the 2nd most in the game. An incredibly strong mid laner. Mark Boots proving why he's an absolute favorite for many viewers in the Divine League.
10 stacks on the Dark Seal as a Shadow Flame with that Hextech Proto Belt already in hand, and oh boy, he has a pretty big Titan target in his mind. 7-1 Spirit Claws versus 8-2 Mark Boots could potentially happen in the top lane, but looks like just a bit of clear, and Mark Boots is going to wisely decide to step away from that matchup.
I wanted to see that so badly. That's the 1v1 I think we all want to see. And right now they're kind of scuffling in the top side.
Yeah, and right now Spirit Claws is going to pop Counter-Strike, and the dodge from Mark Boots, though, with the first point of perfect execution. He doesn't get the second one off, though, as the Jax 1v1 God gets 700 gold into Spiral Claws' pocket.
Yeah, it's good for Spiral Claws. 8-1-1. He's going to get the tower in the top side as well, as long as nobody teleports up there, but nobody even has teleport up except for the dead Mark Boots. So able to get an objective bounty along with a very large shutdown. But again, the dragon stacking still going over to the side of Team Ambition Vikings, and you have to fight them at some point as 5. Last time you did, you got aced, and so I'm not sure they want to fight them. Still just want to let this Jack split up the map. Spiral Claws, no one can fight them one-on-one. They're going to need to throw multiple people over, which is what you want from the Jacks, but what do you get from that split push?
Well, I was curious to see if Rift Herald would get dropped by Hydra Knight in response, but Mark Boots may get thrown into a trap. Hello, 3 members of Purdue Varsity, and Mark Boots is so low, but he's able to get healed by Yuumi. Final chapter will provide enough distance, and now the turnaround from Loki Dosi flashes forward. Kraken Slayer auto picks up the Horsey. Mark Boots is safe, and somehow the Vikings get out of there with a kill, and maybe make it a second. It's a huge shutdown. A bit bad finds the Jackson. This might be the call for Baron now. Oh my God.
Oh man, I didn't see sushi on the menu tonight.
I didn't even see Nami was that far back, but unfortunately was, and now Fox and company, Nature's Grasp will grab the Syndra. The culling will only provide a bit of distance as Fox falls for the 8th time in this game, and now finally Bonfire. Baron is on the menu for the Vikings.
They thought they had the trap on the ninja, but a ninja never goes in alone, always has the clan to go along with her, and the Akali does not fall easy with a cat on her shoulder and a tree by her side. She is able to flip that fight. Mark Boots playing so incredibly well, again knowing the limitations of the champion, barely able to survive, and the bait was more than enough. I don't think we're talking enough about the damage that a bit bad is able to push out as well. All of the summoners up on him as well, along with on Flying Oyster, so I don't think any of the carries feel comfortable on Purdue Varsity with the stuns that are able to come across. That last fight proved that this game, it feels a lot less close than it probably looks.
And Bonfire, you know, we talked about Turk's Yuumi, right? And when most people think Yuumi, it's like, all right, this cat is just going to be glued to an AD carry. But Turk has been just doing such a brilliant job diving in between his teammates.
Yeah,
as you're going to see it in this replay.
I was about to say, I think this replay is going to show it perfectly. This Akali looks dead to right, and look at Turk just hop on at the last minute, ultimate to make sure that no one else can come across, and then a lot of bad, just able to, or excuse me, Loki Dosi was actually flashing forward to go in. Meanwhile, Spiral Claws is thinking, I am dead, my friend. Gets knocked over by the Hecarim stolen by the Viego and gets killed. That's a huge shutdown taken over. And then Fox was able to get away initially. Nami trying to get away, just gets blown up. Sushi on the menu tonight. Fox tries to run away, but Flying Oyster is able to throw the trees at her. And that's 4 down, and we might see another.
Oh, Mark Boots now might be cut out. It's going to be Spiral Claws, the duo Spiral Claws and Hydra Knight. Unstoppable Onslaught gets the fear, but the Shroud, second charge of Perfect Execution, says goodbye for Mark Boots. He's able to survive once again, that pesky ninja.
Yeah, if you're not able to kill Mark Boots right there, that does not spell very good for anybody. Wow, that's 3 rooted in the mid lane, which allows them to push up more into the top lane. And right now they're just juggling waves, right? They're getting a mid push. The Jax is trying to get a bot push to stop anything, but they might just
flash forward. Flying Oyster grabs Fox, who's now very, very low, but here comes the turn. Spiral Claws teleports back in. He's able to get the stun of the Maokai, but he didn't get it on top of the Sivir. Loki Dosi finds one, forces the flash out of Fard, who dies to minions. That's a double. Make it a triple for the Shuriman Warrior, and Team Ambition Vikings are on the cards to knock this base down. It was nearly a penta, but Bad actually took it away, took the Quadra away. But it's not going to matter with the base in shambles and Baron buff still on the cards. This should be the Nexus turrets falling. It's only the 1 in 8 Syndra to defend it. And there's no way, as that's an execute coming across. That's, oh my God. Never mind. That's 2 executes. I didn't even see what happened there. And Flying Oyster is going to give a kill over to Fox, who desperately needs that gold. Game's not over, Bonfire. I was very, very wrong.
Yeah, the game's not over. I think you weren't that wrong. They did a little bit of having fun there at the end, as we might get another bit of the 1v1. I think this is what everybody wants to see, right? The Jax versus the Akali. Here we go.
So here comes Turk to support this Akali.
No,
Spiral Claw is going to try and stun up the Yuumi before he can jump on to the Akali. Final chapter locks up the Jax, and there's the kill for Turk. Coming across, and Mark Boots wants one of his own, flashes forward, throws the shurikens, and Fox kills Zondas perfectly in time, and Fard will be able to take him out, but the Yuumi surfing on the Hextech gate is perfectly fine.
That's what he gets, right? You're able to you ruin the 1v1. That means that you get collapsed on from the rest of Purdue Varsity. Everyone just wants to see the 1v1. Turk, what are we doing here?
Well, here comes a 3v1 as Flying Oyster thinks he can take on Fox, but the bottom lane of Purdue Varsity will also jump on this very tanky tree. Nature's Grass won't find any. The bubble lands. Smaukai is so unbelievably tanky. I cannot believe he's still alive. Finally drops, but now Viego will try and trade him out. Can't find the execute just yet onto the Lucian. He will, though, with the help of Loki Dosi, who is running wild on the backline of Purdue Varsity. Likely to find Fox if they can chase down this Syndra. Solo health and Turk. What an execute on the Yumi Q. That's 3 dead for Purdue Varsity, and maybe now the base will finally crumble even more.
Yeah, this game feels all but done and dusted. They were traded over a couple of kills there near the end. I think at this point they're having maybe a little bit of fun. I don't want to say they're completely throwing because they have a 11,000 gold lead, so I don't think they could throw if they tried. But you got to admit, some of those fights they were probably for fun. But at the end of the day, the wall is just a little bit too big for Team Ambition Vikings, and just a dominant victory all in all.
Well, they still are going to go for the triple inhib route. They're not going to have their Maokai with them, so this is going to be a 5v4 if they stay any longer than this inhibitor. But Fard is already chunked down to 130 HP. That is 1 Q double auto combo on the maximum. The Yumi Q chunks him down low, but the turn is just in time. Fox is actually able to find the Viego, and here comes the chase. Hydra King is going to try and go forward, but is wary of this powerful Akali, who jumps in all on her lonesome, hides in the shroud, but is still knocked up and executed by Unleashed Power. And hold on a minute, he's right. Loki Dosi now is going to have to run for the hills as Flying Oyster will show up to stop Spiral Claws. But this Jax, there's no damage jumping on top of him. Loki Dosi will try and get autos out, but gets stunned up by Counter-Strike. Can they execute the Jax? They will. That is a godlike Sivir. Flashed is away from Unstoppable Onslaught. The fancy footwork gives a double, make it a triple over to Loki Dosi before he falls to Fox.
This game is getting completely weird. It felt like they just had to push in to win the game right there, but Flying Oyster, like you talked about, wasn't there. That triple inhib is going to keep them in the base for the foreseeable future, so it seems like Flying Oyster wants to go in right now. I'm actually a little bit surprised.
How tanky is this tree? That is the big question. It doesn't seem like Far can do any damage to him, and with Yumi on his back, he might be able to solo kill this Lucian. He's forcing them into the fountain with this Yumi, and oh boy, he jumps into the fountain. Oh no, Flying Oyster, you've set your demise up, but it's okay, because Turk, the final auto goes to the Yumi. Team Ambition Vikings, it got hectic at the end, but they'll take game 1 over Purdue Varsity.
That end of the game was very fun as we welcome Gordo back. Gordo, was that what you expected when you saw that lead?
You know, it's in the genes of this TA Vikings team to maybe have a little bit of fun with it, but what are we doing there, guys? It was getting a little bit crazy there for a little while, but they do come out with the dub at the end of the day, and it does look pretty dominant all in all, I must say.
Yeah, it was certainly just such a dominant win. They were just having fun there. I'm convinced they could have ended the game 5 minutes ago. But it was really intriguing, right? Because in the early game, they were actually Vikings were floundering a little bit, especially towards the top side. Flying Oyster got picked off early on. Spiral Claws became a real threat on the Jax early, which you don't always see. But like we've known so many times with the Team Ambition team in the Divine League, if it was TA Black of the past and now the TA Ambition Vikings, whenever the going gets tough, Mark Boots and Turk can turn, just hit a switch and turn the game back into their favor. And you saw how fed the Akali got, and then Loki Dosi, who played very well, but Turk obviously has a big hand in that as well.
Yeah, I thought Turk played incredibly well on the Yumi. You saw the damage the Yumi was able to put out. I'm curious what the numbers were. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get that up, but I imagine the damage was very high. So the Yumi was incredibly strong, but I actually want to say that I think Loki Dosi did a fantastic job with and without the Yumi because we talked about how Turk was hopping on other members, but it really never felt like Loki Dosi was in any danger. The positioning so incredibly well, and then before we know it, hey, Loki Dosi got a double kill. Where the heck did that come from? So really great positioning from the AD carry from TAV.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate Slayer bringing up that Spiral Claws was really making it close for a little bit there, and it all started with that early 1 versus 2 invade. I think we got a replay ready to queue on up here. If we could jump into that one, check out exactly what Spiral Claws was going for here. He starts moving over into this jungle, sees that Bad is clearing out his blue buff, and there's something inside this guy that tells him that he can take this fight. He goes on in here, interrupts Bad, punishes what may be a little bit of greed here by trying to double camp at the same time, and maybe even a little bit more greed here in thinking that they could take him out in the 1 versus 2, but he just keeps finding the angle. He takes out Bad here, and then he just turns and focuses down the Gromp to get the regen back. All around a pretty sick play, all in all. A little bit of a highlight reel clip for Spiral Claws here, even if he doesn't come out with the dub.
Yeah, the one thing I saw there, Gordo, that I thought was very funny is maybe Flying Oyster might have been cursing out Riot pathing right there. You saw, obviously he comes down as quickly as he can once he sees the Jax, but he can't decide whether to go down from the tri-brush or to come back around and flank. And he ends up just going up to the wall and flashing over it to try and save his jungler a little too late. So maybe if he is more decisive about which path he wants to take from the very beginning, it isn't a 2v1. Nonetheless, though, Spiral Claws with some very, very smart heads up invading from the top lane.
Yeah, and I thought Spiral Claws played the game pretty strong, throughout. And even though, obviously Purdue Varsity did not end up taking the W, at the end of the day, that wasn't the Jax's fault. I think at the end, I think what you really hope for as a Jax is that you accumulate the lead and then you're able to just split up the attention. Maybe pick up a couple of drags to force those fights, and you're able to take a couple of those towers by yourself. But when you're team fighting, especially into a Yumi, into a Maokai, you're just never going to win those. So Spiral Claws can't be beating himself up too much for that performance.
Absolutely, going above and beyond, really, with that play in particular, as well as picking up quite a few kills in a later on team fight. But team fights were just coming up for TAV over and over again. Got a clip of the fight that really started to solidify TAV in the lead here. Bonfire, you want to walk us through what went down here?
Yeah, I think they try to go in on a bit bad or a little bit too early, and then they realize that the support is there. And at this point, the health bars are chunked out. Then they try to go in completely on a bit bad, and it looks good. But again, look at Loki Dosi on the backside, able to kill the Hecarim before anything else really begins. Just cutting this out so well. Gets the Shuriken off on to the back line, just flashing the damage. Again, so fantastic. And Mark Boots, while they're focusing Loki Dosi, they realize, hey, she's completely cutting off our entire team. The Ninja is there to pick it up. A little bit of a full house 3-2 on the carries of TAV. Both of them played so incredibly well this game.
Yeah, they played so well, and you could see right there in that clip highlighted Loki Dosi, just such good kiting on this Sivir. We saw later plays where they were able to flash out of unstoppable onslaught from the Hecarim to avoid the fears. Some really well timed spell shields. The first double kill that actually came across for the TAV bottom laner was mainly because he was able to spell shield perfect time the Nami bubble and turn around the fight. So it seems like to me, Gordo, you better ban out Sivir with your one ban next game if you are the side of Purdue Varsity. Or if they have all their bans back, I can't remember. Just ban Sivir is the main takeaway.
Yeah, for sure here. And, in some of these team fights, really some clutch performances from TA. We're going to show one more clip here, Slayer, if you want to show us how exactly TA were able to navigate some of these later game fights and how exactly Mark Boots was able to play to his limits.
Yeah, this one's going to be Mark Boots, a perfect bait here. He's able to jump in the middle of 3. Actually gets caught. He's stunned up by cross. He's stunned by cross strike there, but he's so low, chilling out in the shroud. Down to got to be at least 50 HP, but Yumi comes to the rescue. Shield final chapter heal, and Hydra Knight realizes he's surrounded by the Vikings handedly. And it's just that Sivir again. Pops on the hunt, flashes forward, finds Hydra Knight. Mark Boots is safe under turret. And now you have Fox and Maximum. They're like, oh boy, our two frontliners are completely dead. What do we do? And they can't decide, do we walk away or do we take the gate? Well, one of them took the gate, Gordo, and it wasn't the Nami. Maximum is XQ on the back end of it. It's just beautiful designed plays. Maybe Mark Boots was a little too aggressive jumping in on that shroud down to about 10 HP, but at the end of the day, he knew exactly that they'd have the numbers advantage coming over.
Yeah, and that's the team fighting that TAV really brought that. We really highlighted, we talked about how this comp really was exceptional in team fighting. And then them as a team, as individually as players, also team fight incredibly well. I think if you're Purdue Varsity, it's back to the drawing board. And you have to question, do we try to match them in our own team fighting, or do we continue to double down on the split push? Either way, almost feels like a lose-lose at this point. TAV just miles ahead.
No, wanna shout out there the Sivir heal coming in through there to help save the Akali as well. Just a number of heals and shields coming through at just the right moment to make sure that Mark Boots was going to be able to get out of there alive. But a banger game one, all said and done. Some real nice fights in there, and maybe a little bit of a shred of hope there for Purdue Varsity for quite a while in the game. Maybe some of that handed over by TA, some quite a bit of that because of the very fed Jacks. We'll see if they're able to maybe get some similar early game moves and move them through into the later game as the series goes on. But for right now, we're going to throw it to a quick break while we get ready for draft for game number 2. We will see you all in just a few short moments.
Like, you know where like the cleavage is, where like the boobs touch? Or supposed to touch?
No, I've never touched a woman.
Cat Everfrost used not gonna quite hit. There goes a 5-man shield there. Rax going to get caught up in the baby cage. That's gonna be a 3-man shockwave in the backline with a big face breaker. That's gonna be a showstopper right there. That's
Can't get slowed when he was in Pike's Eve. I have to. Nice. Okay. Okay then. I'm gonna try to get you the penta honestly. You never know. You can't die with this. It's gonna get dog.
Can go. I mean, I have to flash in a second.
Oh my god! Of these teleports on the side of CCW. They might try to go for a pick here. Vox Prime has to be careful. Doesn't know they're all there. This could be the pick they want. But you have to be careful as well, though. They're gonna burst him down. Vox Prime dies before anyone else can go in. They don't get the second call of the force guard. And here we go. Here comes the Vlad. Keep an eye on the Vlad. Vlad on the back line. There's a double knockout. Keep an eye on the Vlad. Vlad gets one of them. Vlad's able to get 2 of them unbound. He's gonna survive on the back end of it. But they're gonna be able to kill the Anivia. And there's 2 dead on the side of CCW. Can they get more? There's the Vlad. Can they get the knockup on Asthmatic Boy? Can he get the blast kill? No, he can't. He's gonna fall incredibly low. They're gonna keep going in. Team Shooter is gonna be able to get the root. They're gonna try to find more. They're gonna find everyone. But there's the kill. Unbound. He's doing it all. Unbound is doing it all. Give it out. Unbound. Unbound's killing them all. Unbound is winning this game.
Okay. That's good.
They're definitely gonna get it, but I think we win this one.
Nice.
Oh my god.
Get it!
you know where like the cleavage is, where like the boobs touch, or supposed to touch?
No, I've never touched a woman.
Cat Everfrost used not gonna quite hit. There goes a 5-man shield there. Bryce Rack's going to get caught up in the baby cage. That's going to be a 3-man shockwave in the backline with a big face breaker. That's going to be a showstopper right there. That's
Can't get slowed when he was in Pike's game. I've seen.
Welcome back to Risen Divine League. After a one-sided affair for Team Ambition Vikings, they are able to take a game lead over Purdue University Varsity in our showcase matchup of week number 4. And we're already getting into draft game number 2, Bonfire. And if you are the blue side for this game, what do you need to switch up to have any fighting chance against those Vikings?
Well, I think the difference is you have first pick if you're Purdue varsity. So if you really value a pick, you can leave it up. You know, think of the Yumi, you can think of a lot of different champions. But on the other side of things, by choosing one champion, you're also opening yourself up to two on the other side. In the last game, it was the Yumi first pick, and it was the immediate response of the Lucian Nami. Now, obviously, it didn't end up coming to fruition, but that's really the give and take that these drafts have. So Purdue Varsity have a question on their hands. How do they want to attack this draft? Because now they're on a different side.
And I will update. I guess I was correct earlier by the fact that the 4 bans will come across for all games for Purdue Varsity. So Jaco and Heimerdinger were agreed as the 2 bans in quotation mark, right? They're not actually champions the Vikings would actually play, but now you have Purdue Varsity on the blue side. They get the same bans from last game from Team Ambition. They're going to select the Udyr in the jungle as R1.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I think Udyr can be incredibly strong. We talk about the innate tankiness that he has. Also, you see some damage Udyr builds. I think single target damage Udyr can be incredibly strong. Build Prowler's Claw, just blow up the carries. But I'm not sure it's as strong in the meta right now as this Aatrox is hovered, and I'm just a little surprised it's P1. I don't imagine TAV was ever really worried about it banning it.
Yeah, it's intriguing, right? Because usually when you're on red side, you don't think you can get a pick like Aatrox. And I guess Team Mission Vikings with the Udyr locked in say, hey, that's a free pick. Why don't we grab it? And they pair it with the Sejuani, which continues that train, Bonfire, of just meta picks for the Vikings.
Yeah, TAV already bolstering themselves up with, 2 incredibly strong champions. Sejuani along with this Aatrox. There's damage, there's tankiness, there's CC. They do really everything you want out of a champion. They're strong early, they're strong late. These are 2 incredibly strong champions right now, and feels like Purdue Varsity just kind of let them slip by. So you'd have to think they have a plan right now, as I imagine there's been a bit of a draft error. We'll soon figure that one out. I'm curious what their plan is to counter this, because I feel like we've seen a million different teams, and whether it's pro to solo queue to amateur, we see different teams trying to find their own way out, and it seems like Olaf Udyr is going to be the picks. I'm not sure if I really believe in that.
Olaf Udyr paired with the Caitlyn on the 3rd round pick. So you got to think that the Olaf is going topside. Well, actually, I think either one of them could go either one of those roles at this meta, Udyr or Olaf top. I will bet on the idea that they're going to send the Olaf into the hands of Spiral Claws, who just performed on a similarly styled champion of Olaf and Jax in a couple of different ways. So we'll go with the Olaf in the top lane for now for me, but Varus is going to be your response in the 80 carry role. That's the pick. That's the Kaori special. Let's see how it performs in Divine League.
Yeah, Kaori played it a lot, didn't really win with it actually at all. I believe Varus is one of the only champs with a 0% win rate in groups. That's not to say it's not a strong champion. I think the poke is incredibly good on Varus. Also, the self-peel with the ultimate. You don't really need somebody by your side the entire time. You're able to peel yourself out. If you've been watching this league long enough, you probably see the Varus triple kill into the quadra that we show in our pre-game and in our breaks. So hey, hopefully, I guess TAV can channel some of that Varus excellence.
We'll have to see if it comes out onto the Rift for Game 2 as we get into the second phase of bans. The one ban that Purdue University wants to utilize with their only one ban is they're going to take Yumi away. So they see the Sivir gets locked, is not going to get locked in with Varus locked in, so they take away Turk's Yumi, a very respectable ban to go for with the one that they had.
Yeah, I think Yumi is incredibly strong. Obviously, there's not the Sivir, so it's not the pairing that you normally see together. But I think Yumi on Aatrox just, I mean, it sounds like a nightmare. I wake up with cold sweats after hearing those two words next to each other, so I understand picking it. Meanwhile, I think TAV doing a fantastic job. You picked the Caitlyn for Purdue Varsity. Let's just take away the Lux and the Morgana, and suddenly all of that Caitlyn lane pressure that was possible, suddenly taken away to a very high extent.
Yeah, it'll be intriguing to see what Purdue Varsity do as a response here to keep the Caitlyn lane pressure because, in my opinion, they've been matched and outclassed with a very high pressure poke bottom lane of Karma Varus. The Karma early game damage is always stupidly sneaky for Turk, and it's a staple of Turk, if I may mention as well. Paired with that, Varus is going to be absolutely deadly as I believe. Oh no, it does come across the Nico will get locked in for Purdue Varsity. I might wager that goes to a maximum potentially. If you
I
want to
think
keep pressure,
I think it probably goes mid. I mean, we'll see right now, I guess. Oh,
nope,
actually,
I
you're
was right.
correct. You were
Classic.
correct. Okay.
Classic.
All right.
Nico grabs the support, and it's gonna be Victor for the mid lane. So at least they still have a strong mid lane pick.
Yeah, I think Victor is very good. Obviously, you have that stun that you can utilize, and you also have very good scaling with the Caitlyn and the Victor. Also, how do you get into those objectives with a Caitlyn and a Victor? If Purdue Varsity gets to those choke points first, it gets very difficult for TAV to break those lines with the traps and the fields. But at the same time, again, you talk about winning lanes being so important. What are your winning lanes? Caitlyn, Nico, I'm not sure if that wins. Meanwhile, we're seeing the Xerath. That's an interesting pick as well.
Well, there's very few ways to make a Victor uncomfortable. I think Xerath is one of those picks, but we're gonna bring Gordo back in here as we have a look at all the drafts now. Gordo, a couple more intriguing picks here from arguably both sides for game 2, to say the least.
Yeah, I'd definitely say so. What really stands the most out to me about this draft, and it isn't necessarily the Nico support, it's the fact that TAV still up against no bans. Draft a completely different comp this time on the red side than what they prioritized in game number one. You know, in game number one, it was the Sivir Yumi Maokai as their rotation, and here it ends up being Aatrox Sejuani, and then the Varus to counter out the Caitlyn. Starting out with Bonfire, what do you think drives that change in composition, and what do you end up preferring here?
I think their first draft was incredibly strong, but I think any chance you have to get Aatrox Sejuani together, I totally get it. It's such a strong combo in the top side, and I think the team fighting's incredibly good. I think at the end of the day, Sever Yumi has a chance to fail. I think Aatrox and Sejuani really need to do something poor in order to fail, as it actually is going to be the Olaf top like you talked about. So champions going all over the place, but at the end of the day, like I talked about, look, Aatrox Sejuani, so strong.
Yeah, there's no easier way to put it, Gordo. That's a great part of the equation to highlight there from Bonfire. But what I think the overall message here might be, Gordo, is the fact that a team of Team Ambition Viking stature is sort of saying, listen, we know how good we are right now, right? So let's see if we can show the entire league that we can play multifaceted comps, despite the fact that we virtually got no bans. So maybe they flash that blue side comp, the staple Sivir Yumi and Maokai. And the other side of the meta coin right now is the composition that you heard Bonfire talk about, which is Sejuani Aatrox, which they were set up so well for on red side. We'll have to see if they can execute a much different comp like you talked about, but I still think there are some really good focal points in this composition, regardless of how different it is to the game one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I really like how, they have that really strong top side with the Aatrox and the Sejuani, but they also end up having this really strong poke core between the Xerath, the Varus, and the Karma. These guys are really going to be able to harass out the likes of this Olaf and this Ujir for a while before getting the fight actually started. But then once it does get started, they really have that skirmishing power that the Aatrox and the Sejuani bring together as a duo. So that's going to be really exciting to see. The bot lane matchup in particular, we don't get to see a lot of support Nico. We don't get to see too much Karma these days either. Varus is sitting at a 0% win rate from World Slayer. How do you think these two face off against each other in the 2v2 matchup?
I think this is going to get ugly quickly in my mind because, yes, Nico can still set up Caitlyn decently well for some of her lane pressure, but Turk's karma is absolutely cracked. I've seen it too many times to know by now that when Turk gets this karma pick, it's kind of like a pocket pick with karma falling out of the meta a little bit more. Really good at controlling the lane and also just getting a lot of kills on the karma to be general. And then you pair with a Varus who can back up a ton of the karma's damage over top. I think unless these two slip up, this Varus and Karma are going to at least come out of lane with a sizable CS lead.
Yeah, kind of going off of that, I think there's a lot of onus onto Maximum to really get those roots off. It's all about that CC that sets up the Caitlyn for her combo perfectly, and I think that's what it comes down to, right? If this Nico lands a couple of roots, that lane is completely changed, no matter the poke damage they're able to put out. So I think a lot of this game is actually put onto this Nico. If the Nico doesn't perform, doesn't land the roots, this could really tumble. But at the same time, if the Nico does, I think, suddenly Fard gets incredibly far ahead. Then the Victor is scaling up. Olaf is definitely going to be in a good position at all points in time until later. And so, I mean, if Nico is able to make this a winning lane, suddenly this game looks a lot different.
All right. Well, that said, we're going to close this one out with some more predictions. We were all correct in game number one by going with the Vikings. Slayer, starting off with you. Are you going to be swapping that up for game number two?
No shot, Gordo. I will restate what I stated earlier. I will not be picking against Team Ambition Vikings in any facet until they prove me a reason to do so. In game one, probably give me more reason to pick them even harder today.
Well, guys, I know how I like to switch things up, so I'm actually not going to do that right now. Faked you out. Going TAV, how could I not? Playing so dominantly right now, it's hard to pick anybody against them.
Yeah, absolutely. I might argue they gave a couple of reasons to doubt in game number one. They did do a bit of running it towards the end of that one, but the fact that they
It's
were
like
in
an
a
AK
position.
gold lead by that point, right?
Yeah, listen, if you get number one weakness on the scouting report for TA Vikings is if they have an 8K gold lead, they may run it a bit. But yeah, I'm gonna be right alongside you guys once again. I'm gonna be picking the TA Vikings to take this one 2-0. But the game, of course, has to be played. Our predictions are not enough on their own. So we're gonna throw it to a break here while we get loaded onto the Rift for game number 2. Slayer and Bonfire will take it away once we're back.
Like, you know where like the cleavage is, where like the boobs touch? Or supposed to touch?
No, I've never touched a woman.
Cat Everfrost used not gonna quite hit. There goes a 5-man shield there. Rax gonna get caught up in the baby cage. That's gonna be a 3-man shockwave in the backline with a big
huge.
face breaker. That's gonna be a showstopper right there. That's
Can't get slowed when he was in Pike's team. I've taken. Nice. Take. Get him. I'm gonna try to get you the penta also. You never know. You can't die with this. Some good dog.
Can go. I mean, I have flashing. Second.
Oh my god!
Have any teleports
They go for a
on the
pick
side of
one here.
CCW. They might try to go for a pick here. Box Prime has to be careful. Doesn't know they're all there.
He's
This
in
could be the
Mega.
pick they
He's
want,
in Mini.
but you have to be careful as well, though. There's the they're gonna burst him down. Box Prime dies before anyone else can go
Oh,
in.
he
They
missed the
don't get
call
the
of
second
Force
call of
God.
the Force God, and here we go. Here comes the Vlad. Keep an eye on the Vlad. Vlad on the back line. There's a double knockout. Keep an eye on the Vlad. Vlad gets one of them. Vlad's able to get two of them unbound. He's gonna survive on the back end of it, but they're gonna be able to kill the Anivia. And there's two dead on the side of
Still
CCW.
going.
And they get more. There's the Vlad. Can they get the knockup on Asthmatic Boy? Can he get the blast kill? No, he can't. He's gonna fall incredibly low. They're gonna keep going in. Team Shooter is gonna be able to get the root. They're gonna try to find more. They're gonna find everyone. But there's the kill. Unbound. He's doing it all. Unbound is doing it all. Give it out. Unbound. Unbound's killing them all. Unbound is winning this game.
Okay. You guys good?
They're definitely gonna get it, but I think they win this one, guys.
Nice.
Oh, maybe they don't.
Get it, get it, get it, get it!
It's put up or shut up time for Purdue Varsity on the blue side here in our second game of a 3-game series against Team Ambition Vikings for your Week 4 showcase of the Divine League. And it looks like they're going to get right into the action here, trying to go for a 5-man stack invade. And Flying Oyster, word of the wiser, will spot out the pathing. So he'll be able to call that one out. A bit bad will be able to move over. Interested to see if they wrap around here. Excuse me, they're going to place a defensive ward, so they'll be able to spot out the invade. As you can see, Gyro Claws walks right into it. So all the chaos avoided early on by Team Ambition Vikings, but Bonfire, oh, as I say that, oh, first strike gold secured Bonfire. Mark Boots is at it again.
Yeah, Mark Boots giving them a pretty big advantage. No, I'm just kidding. Just a little bit of damage. I'm actually surprised to not see Lokadosi or Turk go for an early ward into the bot jungle. They don't know they're sitting on a ward right now, and so this is kind of disastrous for them. I'm curious to see if they go for a possible steal here. Hydra Knight does not have flash as well, so this could end bad, but it does look like a bit bad. I imagine we'll just vertical jungle, knowing that they're starting top.
Yeah, this could be a good classic case of vertical jungling coming out here, as minions do hit the rift, which means a bit bad will start up on that blue, and they will go for the steal. I thought it was very comical that they were sitting there in the brush on top of a ward with a ward close by, thinking, oh, we're going to know when they come to this ward, and they were actually on a ward the entire time. So vertical jungling is going to come across. A bit bad is going to immediately path down to the Dragon Pit. He's going to utilize the hog to go right across, and that does mean, with the ward placed on their own red buff, yeah, that they will be able to track the Sejuani pretty well going forward.
And keep an eye on Fox. He's already roaming down, getting a ward onto the Raptors, so it doesn't look like they actually want to contest that buff, but now they're going to know exactly where a bit bad is, and I think a bit bad right now believes that he actually has the advantage of knowledge, so some vision wars going on right now, and it seems like it's actually going the way of Purdue Varsity.
Yep, and we'll see how it plays out going forward, right? As there are some very gankable lanes. Flash in the top lane, Spiral Claws doesn't have much of the health advantage, but does have the push advantage. And oh boy, here we go. They're going to jump right onto a bit bad. That's Ignite and a Flash Auto. And all of a sudden, Maximum gets first blood on this Nico. Bard will have to back off from Turk's pressure, but that's first blood once again going over to Purdue Varsity.
Yeah, a bit bad, just had no idea. Felt comfortable taking a lot of the damage from those Krugs. Did not end up having to, or not trying to use Smite or anything like that to keep them feeling safe. And all it really takes is a Nico walking over to get that first blood.
Yep, so first blood goes over to Purdue Varsity, as Mark Boots will take a fair bit of harassment in this mid lane matchup. Most of the time when we talk about a lane involved with Victor Bonfire, it's usually a snooze farm fest, but I have a feeling this one might look a bit different with Xerath in the equation.
Yeah, right now Spiral Claws is just trying to get some damage off. Is going to get pulled back. Has to be careful, actually. This is where the Olaf feels most comfortable. There's the Ignite. Flying Oyster takes some damage, but he feels so comfortable the Flash not going to be found.
Splashes forward to try and land that third Q strike, but won't get it to go there, as the Olaf will be forced to back out of lane. Does not have teleport his bot side. This Nico doing so much work to chunk down the Varus. The Q will land, so the arrow does strike the Nico, but it looks like so far this lane is full of its own added pressure from both sides and the bot side.
Yep, I said it in the early game. This Nico could really be the decisive measure.
But Fox is going to get jumped on a bit bad, trying to get something back for his team after suffering first blood. But this Victor, ever present from Fox, is going to play safe towards the tower.
Yeah, but we talked about what those vision battles mean. It's a 10 CS advantage for Hydra Knight right now, just taking camps away and taking kills away as well.
Oh my God! Didn't even get to see a look at what happened in that Aatrox. They just stayed too long with that low health bar, and no flash obviously up, and it's punished by Hydra Knight as another root's going to come across for maximum. But Loki Dosu doing enough damage to push Nico off. Flash forward from Turk to grab the root, and Varus shuts down Caitlyn and maximum. One more auto will do it. Is able to get the root, but it's not in turret range. Turk grabs a kill of their own as well. That's 2 in the bot lane back for TAV.
Yeah, and the top side, Flying Oyster does end up falling, so now it's no sums on this Aatrox. Has to be so careful because even taking a lot of damage will not benefit him at all. Wants to get some damage on the Hydra Knight right now. Hydra Knight actually has to be very careful.
A bit bad flanked around, so they're able to line up the Sejuani stun, and this Udyr might get paid back in full, but the slows are just too much. He's able to EQ forward to get the first knockup, but he's still alive until Mark Boots executes him from distance. Whenever fate calls, it's going to be Mark Boots to answer, and the trades aren't going to stop here, though. Spiral Claws is going to get knocked up and pulled back in, but their bottom lane has rotated over. Maximum's able to trade the Sejuani back over, and Fox will pick up a coveted kill as well. So all in all, at the end of the day, it's a 2 for 2 on the board.
Yeah, it's a 2 for 2, but I think that 100% benefits the side of Purdue Varsity. We're going to look back at how Flying Oyster died right now. You're right. Just stayed a little bit too long. Wants to get one more wave in. A little greedy, but with no summoners right now, that's just as good as dead. And it looks like Hydra Knight just felt so compelled to take it himself. Super easy to grab as the Udyr. But like I said, I think that goes over to Purdue Varsity. Yeah, it's a 2 for 2, but those kills are going on to the Victor. You feel good about that. Meanwhile, Mark Boots had to flash just to get that initial kill. So now suddenly that Xerath is without flash. That's a gankable mid lane.
Very gankable mid lane now comes into the cards for the Xerath, but still a very vital kill to pick up, as either one of the mid laners picked up a kill. Victor on path for some early upgrades now with an assist and a kill picked up. So Fox, you talked about how scary Victor can get once he scales up. Well, that scaling just got advanced very early on in this game, number 2.
Yeah, the scaling got accelerated. This Victor's going to feel so strong. I think also, don't forget to take a look at this Nico, because this Nico's actually pushing out a fair amount of damage. Obviously, it's going to be a support Nico, so it's not as much damage as you would expect normally, but still, there's a lot of damage. A 2-1-1 Nico already has boots. That's very dangerous if you're the side of TAV, because if you walk into a stun Q ultimate combo, suddenly that's like half to 2/3 of your health bar gone.
Yeah, and we do have a bit of a lull coming across, though, in this game number 2, which does give us a chance to take a look at some extra numbers. As I say that, look at the root right of the arcane. Mark Boots from downtown. You blink and you miss it. The Nico has been completely dissipated. His topside Ragnarok pop for this Olaf, and he's able to solo kill Flying Oyster. No knockups for the Aatrox, and no problem for Spiral Claws.
Yeah, I said it early on. This Aatrox feels so comfortable. Now Fox has to go flash.
Flashes but gets stunned up by Glacial Prism. Another stun across from the Xerath. He pops the Chaos Storm. There's not enough damage, though, from a bit bad. And Mark Boots, he'll be able to get it with the W from distance, but now Hydra Knight, he'll find one with Udyr ultimate. Stuns up the Sejuani bot side. It's a trade of support for AD carry, as Fard can take Turk down. The Loki Dosi falls, and oh boy, the Hog is also slain towards mid lane by Hydra Knight for his 3rd kill. Kills galore all across the map, Bonfire, in this game number 2.
Yeah, so much going on right now. If you need a little bit of a refresher, Loki Dosi 3-0-1 with a 15 CS advantage. That bot lane 100% going over the team Transition Vikings, but it looks like the jungle is completely sacked. A 17 CS difference. This Udyr was proving why it needed to be first picked in the top side. A 0-3 Aatrox will feel pretty comfortable going in later, as we've got a replay already. Look, in the top side, it's the Olaf feeling incredibly comfortable with the Ragnarok going into that Aatrox. In the bot side, Fard just farming up right now, wants to pick up this lane. I want to see what happened here. Turk and Lokadosi just autoing the turret. And he's going to get rooted up right here from Turk. Dies for it, but he does get the trade-off onto Turk. So at least it's a 1-for-1. But man, so much going on across the map.
Yeah, and it continues. Hydra Knight and company are going to jump on top of this. Rift Herald, Shelly will get secured. Fox will be able to hover over and protect them as Turk's going to try and come over and create some extra vision. But Spirit Claws looking... that's not actually Spiral Claws, excuse me. That is Maximum fronting his Spiral Claws. There's a good stun across. Mark Boots gets some damage down, but not enough out of this Xerath yet to really ward a ton of early damage. And it's just going to be Rift Herald secured for Purdue Varsity.
Yeah, it's a good Rift Herald as well. There are still plates up. Look at the top side. You can take 2 plates right now and get this Olaf mega ahead. Keep him comfortable in this game.
Oh, he pops Ragnarok again. Lands one axe. Will be able to throw another one down, but he decides not to. Flying Oyster will expend the flash, and this Olaf completely dictating the early top game pressure. But towards the bot side, Maximum, he tries to turn on to Turk, but didn't expect Sejuani on the other side. Pops that stopwatch, but the stun till comes across, and Turk will find his second onto the lowly Nico.
Yeah, and Fard has to be careful, realizing that now.
Chilling Smite lands across onto Fard. He'll drop a trap, but Bad will dodge out the first one and the second one. Knocks up the Caitlyn and sends Fard to the gray screen. Topside, though, Shelly gets popped. That'll knock down the first topside turret, but they are going to have enough with the top turret as well. They're going to try and take down Flying Oyster, who knocks Spiral Claws low enough for the execute from Mark Boots, and he's now trying to run away from Hydra Knight, who will trade him out. Chaos galore again. Bonfire. I cannot keep track of all these kills with 19 already at 10 minutes.
It's a lot like game 1 in the sense that Purdue Varsity are just sacking their bot lane. They don't care that their bot lane is so far behind. The difference, almost 2,000 in the gold difference just in the bot lane, but they're making up for it. The top gold difference, almost 1,200, and in the jungle, it's about 1,500. So they're sacking this Caitlyn in order to get this top and jungle ahead. An interesting choice because last game, it bit them in the butt with Lokadosi. They're hoping the Varus isn't able to do it this game.
Looks like it's going to be a on-hit sort of crit style likely build for Loki Dosi. I believe that'll be an Immortal Shield Bow locked in after this first. Back from the Varus is, yep, that will be locked in. Is Flying Oyster has now moved over to the mid lane, but it's still the same troubles. Fox going to try and get the Gravity Shield down. Chaos Storm and this Olaf, no CC, no problem. Aatrox is so close to death, but actually escapes the Chaos Storm. So Flying Oyster, with a bit of trickery, avoids his 5th death of the game.
Yeah, and Spiral Claws is going to be kicking himself right there. One more axe, one more auto. He wanted to fade it away, wanted to keep himself safe. I think he felt uncomfortable. Right now, Turk might be caught out.
Turk rooted up, but flashes away from the Nico ultimate, and there's just not enough damage coming across to really warrant any further play. But that is a key summoner dropped on the TAV support.
Yeah, Karma now is suddenly a sitting duck. Lokadosi still does have a lot. The ultimate expended, but with the trap, you feel pretty comfortable. And in the bot side, it looked like Turk was roaming down to possibly go on top of that. So right now, Fard actually has to be careful. I don't think he knows that Sejuani's in the area. Now he's pushing himself away.
Mark Boots spots out 2 from the Purdue Varsity side of the mid lane. And it looks like now a bit bad is just going to try and flank Hydra Knight. This is a very tanky Udyr who's CC immune, but finally rooted up by Karma. A couple right of the arcane shots will land, but it's just not enough damage. And we might see a turn come across here. That's 5 members strong at Purdue Varsity, but the slows from Karma and Xerath are enough to assuage them from going any far forward with the Drake not even on the Rift.
Yeah, they don't want to push too far into it. Hydra Knight was already at about 2/3 of his health bar, and when that's your front line, you don't feel comfortable at all. Right now, this Nico has to be... Okay.
Oh my god, you blink and you miss it!
I was about to say this Nico has to be careful, not respecting at all the damage that Turk and Lokadosi, can push out. And I mean, there's no other way to put it. That wasn't it.
Yep. That is the 4th death coming across for Ravens fan. Maximum is now hopefully a bit of a lull state at 13 minutes. It means that we can take a look at the gold, and it's just not too much of a heavy lead. Nearly 1,000 for TAV with first turret secured.
Yeah, and a lot of that, again, is in the bot side. 2,500 on this Varus over the counterpart. Marquez is going to get stunned up here. The ultimate expended from Fox.
Chaos Storm drops flash forward by Fox to dodge out the slow. A nice death ray will land. Can he find the second one and line up for the kill? Nope, just a little too far off, but a nice play there from the mid laner from Purdue Varsity. The dive might come across, though. Spiral Claws is going to try and chase him down. Pops Ragnarok. The stun will come across from Mark Boots. He flashes out of the way, lands a Q, and Spiral Claws has to run for the hills now, but a bit bad's going to go forward onto this Nico. Only level 6 and Flying Oyster is going to try and trade him out. A 2-man stun will come across from the Nico, and it's enough to set up the trade for Fard. So Aatrox for Nico is looking like all that's going to go down here with a very extended fight.
Yeah, and you take those.
Oh my god, I can't believe it. Spiral Claws, questionable turn to try to make onto the Sejuani, gifts a free kill over to a bit bad.
Yeah, Hydra Knight has to be careful. Turk is an absolute problem. 4-1 and 4 in the Karma. You were 100% correct. This Karma is so strong when it's in Turk's hands. Meanwhile, Lokidosi, looking more like lackadaisical, just feels so comfortable. Taking turrets, walking around, getting CS. 112 to the 80 of the Caitlyn, taking down this top turret with Turk in the wings. Just so strong on this Varus. When it gets into these team fights, expect there to be damage galore.
Great point to make there. As mid lane, there is a lot of damage getting dropped down. A bit bad. He's going to have to juke out from the gravity field and flashes the wall right before Nico can snare up the hog. And with one more dash, will once again elude capture. Somehow so many kills in this game, but it feels like not enough with how many pick plays have come across the rift so far.
Yeah, they've done a good job of dodging out on a lot of issues. Both teams have had a lot of low surviving members, but right now they want to go in.
Ragnarok pop. This Olaf is trying to chase down Lokidosi. Roots up the Olaf when Ragnarok ends, though, with Chains of Corruption. And Hydra Knight is tanky, but doesn't do enough damage. So they're going to once again have to back away from Team Ambition Vikings with one more arrow piercing the Nico.
Yeah, Lokidosi again showing us why he was so incredibly strong on Silver last game. The kiting was so good in that fight, just pushing out, making sure to get weaving autos in to damage them. So fantastical. Hydra Knight getting his backstop, very funny.
Oh my god, Flying Oyster, acing the whole Chaos Storm. Nearly enough, but for the 1800th time this game, Bonfire, a TAV member escapes with a sliver of health.
Yeah, they've done a fantastic job of knowing their champions, and it's acquired them a 2,000 gold lead for themselves. TAV just doing a good job of dictating this game. It feels like Purdue Varsity constantly want to be the ones to start the fights and end them, but by not getting these kills, they're just giving over ultimates, and if you give over too many ultimates, that means you have to sack drags. It looks like they're going to sack the second one.
Yeah, the priority for Purdue Varsity's top side is the top lane right now. Udyr and Olaf are trying to pressure that inner turret, and with how low it is, Shelly getting dropped should be enough to claim that very valuable standing gold. But you talked about on the other side, Team Ambition Vikings are now on a dragon stack against Purdue Varsity. Switching up my V's there.
Yeah, but look at Lokidosi again. He took bot, he took top. Now he's about to take mid. I'd love to see the gold grab because I imagine he must be the most rich member in the game, as Fox might be rooted up.
Oh my god, what a picture-perfect play. Stun onto Nico, flat dash over the wall from Bit Bad, and Lokidosi picks up the kill on the back end. This Varus is now 3,000 gold ahead of this Caitlyn, as Team Ambition Vikings will try and push in the mid turret. Good use of Gale Force to dodge Chains of Corruption, and Fard will just have to back off and watch an inner turret fall for his squad.
Most in the game, 8,000. I imagine it's more now. 8,000 when we were looking at it, easily the most in the game. Lokidosi is an absolute problem. 4-0-2, 141 CS, but if you ignore the CS and just look at the towers, I believe that's 4 that Lokidosi have gotten all by himself. That's all the towers that TAV. Lokidosi is just running across the map, not worrying about skirmishing, just worrying about the towers. It's an objective game after all, and TAV now 3,000 ahead.
It's very intriguing, right? Because TAV are very far ahead. They're 4 kills up, but I feel like so many of these fights are just going evenly, right? We've had a bajillion 1-for-1 and 2-for-2s, but it really speaks to the macro bonfire from this Viking squad that they're up as much as they are at this point.
Yeah, and I think now that all of those towers are down, those 4-on-5s or 3-on-2s that we saw that were going even are now going to have the ADC of Lokidosi in them. So I expect them to go a lot differently now that this AD carry is here. As long as Lokidosi is able to dodge out from dying way too early on, this Varus is going to be an absolute problem. Expect the health bars to get depleted incredibly quickly.
Well, it looks like a bit bad thinks he can take on the entirety of Purdue Varsity in their jungle. He tries to get some vision cleared out, but recognizes there's too many members and will back off. It seems like the priority right now for Purdue Varsity, despite their early woes and gold woes, is continuing to pound in the top waves into the base of Team Vision Viking.
Yeah, they want to keep this Aatrox out of any fight. Right now, he does have teleport advantage, though, so if Olaf is going to stay up there and push in these waves, if there ever is a fight, it's going to be a 4-on-5 in favor of TAV, so I imagine Spiral Claws actually has to get out.
Well, they're going to jump on him 2v1. Ragnarok immediately popped, and he's just going to eviscerate the Darkin there. Aatrox falls, and now he's going to chase a bit bad down. It's very hard to beat up an Olaf when you can't CC him at all as Sejuani and Aatrox.
Yeah, the Olaf feels so comfortable. Does not take too much damage, but just enough to get that late damage that you get when you don't have a lot of health on the Olaf, and just blows up Flying Oyster. This Aatrox, not where you want to be. Olaf, turns out, might be the counterpick to Aatrox. Someone should tell Cloud9.
That's a painful joke to make. It's still a bit of pain for me, and a bit bad just trying to dish out some pain of his own. He does show to Hydra Knight and Fox, but once again, no play will come across. Purdue Varsity, though, they're still sticking around in the gold department, Bonfire.
Yeah, this game's not completely over. It's a 1,500 gold lead right now. A lot of that gold is going to be on this Udyr along with the Olaf. They focus so much on the top side this game. You need both of those members to do something, and I think a lot of it is on Spiral Claws to do something in the next 10 or so minutes, because the Olaf does fall off at a certain point. You aren't going to be able to get on the Varus, and the Varus can just kite you out. So I expect Spiral Claws and the rest of the team to push in an objective soon, try to force this game to be a lot closer, maybe force a team fight while he's still strong.
Ocean Drake is under a minute away. That would be for Soul Point for Team Vision Vikings, and Baron Nashor is also hit the rift at 20 minutes now. So it feels like a lot of these teams will prioritize fighting as fighting continues in the top lane. Spiral Claws, he gets CC'd at the very end of Ragnarok, and that saves Flying Oyster from his 7th death of the game. But boy, I was certainly wrong about that Olaf there slamming on the drums.
Yeah, and look at that. Look at the ult cooldown. That Ragnarok is already a third of the way ready, so it's going to be up for this dragon. Lokidosi, that is the biggest problem for him. Just having an Udyr and an Olaf running directly at you. You're going to need this Karma. You're going to need this Aatrox along with the Sejuani to give you peel. Talk about the self-peel that Varus might have. I don't think you have enough. I don't think you have that much self-peel.
Well, peel is going to have to be important for Mark Boots. His right of the Arcane picks up 1 kill, and Lokidosi shuts down the Victor. So not a lot of 5v5 fighting, but when it happens for the Vikings, it goes very well.
Yeah, who needs to worry about the Olaf and the Udyr when they're not even in the fight? You find the pick onto Fox and onto Maximum, and it looks like Baron's going to be called, and doesn't even look like Purdue Varsity wants to possibly try to go for anything here. They're going to go for the Dragon and cross-map it, and they're going to get it successfully, but that is a Baron for free on the back of only 2 kills. TAV, pull the right trigger.
The Soul Point secure is pushed off another 5 minutes between Mission Varsity, but like you talked about, they're already taking a couple really high-value turrets in the mid lane, and they pick up Baron, and it pushes that gold lead towards a significant point finally at 22 minutes.
Yeah, and there's no objective bounties as well. This game is not too far gone for Purdue Varsity, so taking this tower feels good for the Olaf, but again, it's just, look at how far behind the Caitlyn is falling. All of the damage, all of it is going to be on this Olaf and on the Udyr. Caitlyn and Victor feel like they're so far behind their counterparts.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. As we look at some of these bounties too, it's the same from the last game, right? Along with Turk, it's 500 gold bounty onto this deathless Lokidosi Varus, and Mark Boots 5-1-3 might actually be 5-1-2. Caster Curse is certainly not fun. Shut down goes to the Olaf. You cannot stun the Ragnarok Olaf, but Ragnarok drops, and Flying Oyster will trade the kill back over. Nonetheless, in the gold department, that favors the Varsity side as they also find the other shutdown. I shouldn't bring up bounties anymore, Bonfire.
But again, you're getting the kills onto the wrong people. You know, you're never going to be mad about getting kills. I don't want to say that Purdue Varsity's doing the wrong thing by seeking out these kills, but Fox and Fart are not getting the gold. Finally, they're going to kill this mid lane and get them some gold, but they have to be careful. They're getting wrapped, and Aatrox is taking a tier 2. Suddenly, this Aatrox might be back in the game as well.
Aatrox has that Baron wave going, and a bit bad. Might be doing some stalling for his top laners. He's trying to cut across and stop the entirety of Purdue Varsity from matching him. He finally is able to escape, and a teleport will come across from Mark Boots, but they want to go forward now. Beautiful Glacial Prism, and Fox is evaporated by Mark Boots. Those right of the arcane shots, so dangerous, and so is that Hog. Shuts down Nico, and Fard is not long for the world either. This Aatrox finally online just enough, but he's able to sneak over the wall. The Karma Q not enough, the Flash Q from Flying Oyster is, and that will be the base broken wide open. 3 for Vikings, 0 for Varsity, as Spiral Claws might have to watch out as well. This potentially just could be the game here.
Yeah, this 100% could be the game. They have the Baron buff. They have a wave coming in the mid lane. I'm not sure if they have the wave clear. It's only the Nico. With Fox coming up soon, this could potentially not be the game. They have to be careful, actually, not to push up way too far as a bit bad takes some damage.
Yeah, but look at the damage coming back onto Hydra Knight, but it's going to be Turk that falls first. This Olaf, he's chopping down Loki Dosi. A double kill for the Valhalla King. He shuts down the Sejuani with Hydra Knight, and Mark Boots, all he can do is run away. Team Ambition Vikings overstay and are aced by Purdue Varsity.
A fantastic job from Purdue Varsity to recognize the targets that they need to kill. Let's look back at this. Mark Boots just pushed up a little bit too far, had the Baron buff, wants to push in a wave, but you cannot do that when there is an Olaf across the map. Has the friends to be able to trade this one out, but we go towards the mid lane. Lokidosi wants some possible fighting. He wants to keep fighting. He's been stuck on turret duty this whole game, but at the same time, he does not recognize that the team members are there to keep Fox alive. But the base defense was so incredibly strong from Purdue Varsity there at the end. They aced them, and they get themselves back in the game because, again, the kills are now starting to creep their way back over to Fox and Fard. Exactly what you need late game for Purdue Varsity. And also, Spiral Claws, I've talked about how this whole game there's a timer on him. That timer just seems to continue to get longer and longer. Doesn't ever feel like he's truly out of this game.
Yeah, great point to make there is the gold lead is about 700, which at 25 minutes means very, very little. Keep in mind, Purdue Varsity, they dropped this game, they moved to 0-3, and they are basically out of Divine League postseason contention, and boy, are they stepping up with the pressure up.
Yeah, I think Spiral Claws as well. You talk about that game 1 Jax that he had. We talked about how that game was not his fault at all. Played it as well as he possibly could. It's the same thing this game with the Olaf. Spiral Claws just trying his very best to get them back in this game, and a bit bad might be too pushed up.
Trying to clear out some vision, couldn't be slowed up and is able to dash away, but boy, a risky play to go for nonetheless. The Vikings, though, are all assembled now behind him to help clear out that vision as they're trying to play around breaking this Varsity base open even more.
Yeah, and I think quietly as well. Well, first of all, talk about the Olaf splitting off the entire map, but I can't talk too much.
Maximum forces Zanyas to avoid the Xerath damage, but that sets him up very aptly to get blown up by the Sejuani. A good stun comes across, but Loki Dosi will execute this Nico. And with the damage of Caitlyn and Victor finally coming online, that's all they can get is Spiral Claws in the top lane, takes Inhibitor Turret, and is now just chasing down Flying Oyster. Will the chains pull him back just in time? Yes! Dashes forward the shield. Will it be enough? It is! Another kill for this Olaf as he heals back up to health. He'll take the inhibitor as well. This top laner for Purdue Varsity doing no wrong in game number 2.
Yeah, and he's keeping them in the game. Look at the rotations that he caused. Even if he falls, that's another dragon, and it's an Ocean Soul. So they get 2 Ocean Dragons, and now he wants to keep pushing. You have to fight till you die.
Well, he is going to dive on fire. Shut down to Mark Boots, but like you talked about, he created so much space, and now this game seems so much more realistic for Purdue Varsity, and what a switch up in action compared to the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, I will say at a certain point, even with how good this Olaf is doing, he needs the rest of his team to follow alongside beside him. I think that in the mid lane, this Victor isn't too far behind, but if you look at the items that Lokadosi has versus this Caitlyn, the disparity is just so much. It's an item difference. It feels so strong for this Caitlyn to have. And I'd imagine, or excuse me, for this Varus to have. And right now, they just want to pull the trigger with Spiral Claws dead.
Let's see if they can make the turn. Mark Boots is immediately teleporting into the pit. They try and chunk down Hydra Knight, but the Nico comes forward, can only root up the Sejuani, and is immediately blown up, but gets a 3-man snare. But finally, Flying Oysters does enough to protect his carries from maybe Hydra Knight, though? Not so much. He's dripping all of them down, and the Varsity members so low, the burn is enough. The Varus will fall, kills aplenty, but it's going to go 4 for 3 in favor of TA Varsity. Or TA Vikings, sorry.
It does go over to TA Vikings, but you stop the Baron, you feel pretty comfortable about that. Yes, you lose a member for that, but when you're down gold, that Baron really would have spelled demise. And the fact that you're able to survive and actually almost go even in a fight without Spiral Claws feels good. Also, look at the base. These top minions are just pushing their way in continuously, making it difficult for Vision. Look at how dark it is for the side of TAV. They have no top push, and because of that, they have no idea how their top jungle is looking. We go to a replay right now to see how this goes. It looks like Hydra actually gets rooted up in the beginning, or stunned up, excuse me, into the root, has to walk himself away. The Varus gets knocked up, and Ravens gets a great stun off. There has to be the flash from Lokadosi. They blow up this Nico, but he gets the stun off into the ultimate from Fox, so the health bars aren't there. And then how about Hydra Knight just running his way in there? Spiral Claws running in from base, but it does not end up mattering. Hydra Knight just ran directly at all of them and won them the fight, or actually went even in the fight right there.
Great to highlight there from our observer is the fact that Spiral Claws was not present for that entire exchange. So that's 4v5 for Purdue University, and they're basically able to go nearly even with the given numbers. We'll see how this fight goes, though. World Ender pop, Flying Oysters trying to trade out Fox. The gravity field is enough to keep him alive for a second, but that Aatrox is not going to stop coming forward. Another good laser will force Maw of the Marmortius out, but it's enough with the follow-up auto. Flying Oyster finds the victor in the side lane, and we go back towards the top river. This is another 4v4. The Olaf Ragnarok popped. Lokadosi can do nothing but fall, and Mark Boots is next. They lose the victor, but they find the Viking carries, and that should be Baron Nashor on the cards for Purdue Varsity.
Spiral Claws says, "Who's the Viking? I am." Yeah, I might have more to say.
Oh my god, they're going to turn onto the Sedge, Turk, and Flying Oyster combination. This Udyr is nearly unkillable. Flying Oyster flashes away, gets hit by Ace in the hole. There's a huge Karma shield, but does Turk pop it to his own demise? Yes, he'll trade his own life for Flying Oyster, and Purdue Varsity keeps finding the fights to force their way into this game.
They should change their name to Purdue Vikings after this one, because right now they're living and dying by the Olaf, but just like the Olaf himself, they're living through these fights. A fantastic team fight right there, as Olaf found all of them. And again, when they're grouped up like that, you just get all of your damage off all at once. A fantastic job grouping them all up together. That's going to be Baron for Purdue Varsity. They don't want this series to end. They don't want their season to end.
Well, grabbing Baron Nashor will save their season for a bit longer here. So the first time in 31 minutes, Purdue Varsity have the gold lead back. This is an absolute banger game too.
Yeah, this game's fantastic with 40 seconds up on this dragon as well. It doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. Again, I talked about how it's an Ocean Soul that greatly benefits everybody on the side of Purdue Varsity. Hydra Knights, Spirit Claws, Udyr, Olaf. How do you kill them?
I don't know how you kill them.
You don't?
I don't.
That's the answer.
There you go. But it is worth mentioning they're each at 2 here. So it's still a very long ways away that the soul can be secured, and it's worth mentioning, with death timers, sure, you may be able to pick up the 3rd Drake, but if you lose the ensuing fight, you might just lose the game.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they want to go in. I talked about in the draft how strong Caitlyn and Victor can be if they get to the objective early. Look at those traps that they have set up. Even if they wanted to get in right there, they'd have to take a difficult position. Thank you for that observer right there. You'd have to walk directly into those traps, so they don't feel comfortable doing that. And this is what Purdue Varsity want, right? They want to force them into these weird objective fights. They want to force them where they want to be, and now they're doing that.
Hydra Knight, it looks nigh unkillable with this Udyr, and all a bit back can do is back off. It's also worth mentioning that passive burn damage from Demonic Embrace is so valuable on this Udyr as they try to set up a siege of their own going, but it's very hard to do that against Xerath and Varus.
Yeah, they have a Baron buff, so they need to just continue to push in the waves. I'd like to see a 1-3-1. I don't think anyone can really fight this Olaf in a one-on-one, so you feel comfortable throwing Spiral Claws in the lane by himself as he's going to take the bot side. Meanwhile, TAV run as five as a team, so they don't feel comfortable at all walking up.
Yeah, no comfortability coming across right now for Team Ambition Vikings. So, Bonfire, I got to ask you, momentum riding high for Purdue Varsity. How do the Vikings find a way to pull this game back and execute fights their way?
Yeah, this game is not nearly over. We look at the gold graph so many times, but I feel like we're always looking at the Olaf. We need to be looking at the Varus as well, because as I was talking about earlier, this Varus just needs to get away from the damn Vikings. Stay away from the Olaf, and this fight feels a lot better, but I don't know if he can do that.
Oh my god, Ghost Ragnarok pops. He can flash away. He QSS's basically nothing, but look at the shield from Turk. Is it enough? No. Spiral Claws in the Vikings base executes the Varus, and now Mark Boots, Gale Force forward from Bard, finds him as well. The carries drop again, and this looks like Purdue Varsity finding the window and finding a Game 2 win with the base in shambles and long death timer.
What towers? What towers? Who cares? Run under tower. I mean, you saw that. It looked like a Tom and Jerry cartoon, just chasing him across the map, even with the big shields that the Karma was able to provide. It did not end up mattering. That's 3 of us wrong for this game. Purdue Varsity shuts us all up, and they take Game 2.
I should have known once Bonfire agreed with me on the pick for Game 2. It's a cursed thing, but what's not cursed is the composition play from Purdue Varsity as we will welcome Gordo back in. What a heart-wrenching game for the side of TAV. Your expression says it all, Gordo.
What am I coming back to, Slayer? What has been going on this entire game? The Olaf just putting him on his back this game. What a crazy series this has been so far for the Purdue top laner. Just putting the team on his back both games in a row here. The Jackson game number 1, the Olaf in game number 2. And fantastic performance all around. Got some 1v2s in some of those ganks. Really was able to find some great angles into the fights later on. We'll have some replays here pretty shortly. But wow, I can't even say anything else there. We're all wrong, as you stated, Slayer. We are going to a game number 3 tonight.
It's been a while since we got to a game number 3, I feel like, in these showcase matches. So I'm super always excited for extra League of Legends. And I do have to offer up the point. I thought this Olaf would get absolutely clapped, and Bonfire, it was the complete opposite.
Yeah, this Olaf felt so comfortable on it. I appreciate you recognizing when you were wrong about something. I've been wrong about my predictions quite a bit, and it looks like you were wrong about yours right there, because that Olaf did not just do fine in lane, went above and beyond. I feel like if that is any other champion that's being played, it does not matter, but maybe I start spamming Olaf top in solo queue, although I don't imagine I can play it nearly as well as that.
Yeah, no, and game was looking like it was going to be TAV's win for a while there. We're going to start with our first replay here, where TA really spring the trap here. They get an angle to break into the base off of this play. And this was the point where I really thought it was going to be all over. A great TP in from Mark Boots. Great combo with Bad. They were doing this the whole laning phase long, just getting the chain stuns together between that Xerath and that Sejuani. And this double kill here opens up a great chance for them to move into the base and start to actually cracking open Nexus turrets. You know, we thought the game might be over after this one, but they just don't manage to get it done.
Yeah, they didn't manage to get it done right at the end there. I was the one saying, Gordo, I thought the game might be over there with just an Udyr and an Olaf left to clear. but they were able to turn it around. It felt like this game was all about which team could blow up the other team's backline before the other happened, right? With you try to line up those chain stunts like you saw in that replay, but on the other end, it was just a much more simple tactic on the back line for Purdue Varsity Bonfire.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see what Purdue Varsity likes to do in these team compositions. We saw in game one, they had the Jacks, but that was more of a side lane pressure, wasn't really great in team fights. Now they've completely switched it up in the sense that now they want their top laner in the fights, and I think that was the correct decision. Even with Fox falling behind on the Victor, with the Caitlyn falling behind, it never felt like they were out of the fight because of the carry top. So I expect to see something similar in game three. Why stop it if it's still working?
Yeah, absolutely expecting to see some more of those carry top laners, but they were able to win some fights even without the Olaf. We got our next replay coming up here with that Baron fight that really could have swung the game in one direction or another, but in reality ended up just carrying us through even a little bit longer. If looks like Caddy's got that one ready, he just might.
Yeah, in that fight, I'll just mention a little bit quicker. We talk about Fox falling behind, but at the end of the day, the ultimate from Victor is still always going to be strong, and right here it certainly was.
Yeah, no, break this one down for us, Bonfire. I mean, look at how close they get in on this Baron fight. So close to getting the multi-man stun there from the Nico.
Yeah, it really could have gone either way, but again, the Nico did what the Nico needed to do. The health bars just aren't there, and that's because of the route into the ultimate from the Victor. At the end of the day, Hydro Knight as well is just able to isolate 3 people. I say isolate 3-on-1 feels fine for the Udyr. I was questioning the Udyr first pick. No longer am I questioning the Udyr first pick.
Yeah, you mentioned it. The Nico misses the ultimate stun, but actually right before they fall, gets a 3-man snare with the Nico Q, and that sets up a ton of damage to come across. And Hydra Knight stupidly tanky. That the demonic embrace. If I don't see demonic embrace nerf coming across at some point, I'm going to be a little upset because the damage that he could just burn down with going full tank at that point is so silly, and you could see it in that clip so heavily.
No, quite a few item changes coming next season. We'll see. Maybe it's going to be time for that one to bite the dust, or at least get changed into some other form, to where maybe it doesn't feel the way that it does right now. Because definitely agree with you on that one. And yeah, the Udyr really coming up, being basically unkillable right along with the Olaf throughout a lot of this game. I do have to call out. The Varus ends up with no armor pen in their build this game, and it really starts to cost them, especially as we get towards the end here. We can take a look at that final fight, Slayer, if you want to break it down.
Well, this is a really simple breakdown. It's called you hit D and you hit R as Olaf, and you find the 80 carry, and nothing else on your screen matters. He dives multiple turrets. That's like a 500 HP shield from turret. The root doesn't come across, though. He QSS's basically nothing, and Spiral Claws gets the kill. And on the other end, you saw Mark Boots. He has to run away from Hydra Knight, and Fard, who finally has the itemization on this Caitlyn, executes him. So they lose their carries, and that's all they needed to shut the Vikings out. Perfectly showcasing how silly and amazing this Olaf was at the same time, though.
Yeah, even with armor penetration, I'm not sure there's much more that Varus could do against an Olaf running directly at you. It's like holding up your hands and yelling "stop" at a freight train. You're just gonna lose your hands.
Yeah, no, for sure there, and lost quite a bit more than his hands. As it looks like we might even be getting ready to go right into draft here. So we'll be there in just a couple of moments, but we'll finish breaking down exactly what we saw in that game number 2. I mean, the 1-1 score line going to game number 3. Nobody expected it coming into the night. We didn't predict it in either of our games, but nonetheless, Purdue Varsity trying to fight back, trying to find themselves a spot in the postseason, and an upset over TA would get them a lot of the way there, almost exactly half the way there, one might even say.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great point to make. And I mean, when you look at it, there are a couple of, Cupid Esports and Two Life to Play, who are also in their group, are also already 2-1. And I believe one of them is about to wrap up their, I believe it is Cupid Esports is wrapping up their split now. So so you'll have a better look at what your group's going to look like going forward. But with being a 5-week split and there's 3 spots of 5, every win matters so much. And like you mentioned, halfway the way there already if you can get this game 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looks like they're ready to get into Game 3 draft, so no break going to be necessary. I'm going to send you guys in there to check out what the picks and bans are going to be for our final game of the night. Take it away, Slayer and Bonfire.
Thank you so much, Gordo. We'll see you after the draft. And I do want to remind everybody at home, Purdue Varsity just won a game with 1 ban. They had 1 ban allowed, and it was the Yumi. And they're still able to pull a win out. So you will see the same repeat here, but nonetheless, Team Mission Vikings, they aren't wavered by that loss. They're just going to go through the same straight ban starting out with the Vigar.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? The Vigar is still incredibly strong. I mean, we have to see the Olaf, right? Like, am I crazy for saying I imagine there will be an Olaf ban?
I can understand why you don't ban it. You just don't pick. Maybe you don't pick such susceptible AD carry that can get jumped on because Varus has no escape pathing. They actually decided to opt to ban the Udyr, which is a very similar, worked really well with the Olaf, and looks like Purdue Varsity back on blue side. They're gonna take the one champion they banned away from Game 2 Bonfire with the Yumi.
Yeah, the Yumi still. Yeah, I could say it all, right? I could continue to say my points about how strong Yumi is. You all know how good Yumi is. You probably cursed the cat before, so I'm not gonna bore you with how great Yumi is. But I'm actually just gonna talk about how in Game 1 we saw Turk showcasing the Yumi. The question for me is, do they go into the Yumi server? Because the last 2 games they've picked bots that need to get pushed, that need to get advantages, and they haven't. So do they go with the Sivir and they just, say, you know what, farm off by yourself. I'm not going to really focus you. Or do they, again, go all in on another carry bot laner and, again, kind of ignore it? I think that's the real question.
Well, the real question now for me is what was that first pick on red side for TA Vikings? We didn't get a good look at it. They're going to hover J4 for the second one here. So they're going to get a lot more team fight based crowd control from their jungler in a different facet compared to Sejuani, but that does allow Purdue Varsity to potentially lock in the Sivir Yumi. I do want to quickly point out we do have some more placeholder bans. So Shaco, Heimer, and Urgot are going to be your placeholder bans. Those are agreed upon bans that just speed up the draft process.
Yeah, and I like that, right? As someone who enjoys watching the game and not the draft, I like to see the bans come across a lot quicker. It is going to be the Kaisa with the first pick for TAV, along with the Sivir. So it is the Sivir, which I like, right? If you're going to not focus more on the top side, which I think you have to if you're Purdue Varsity after that last game, just throw your AD carry on a mindless farming AD carry. They'll be good by the end of the game. It just makes sense to me.
It does make a lot of sense, but I also think the Kaisa pick makes sense. Immediately paired with the J4. You try and talk about champions that you can set up with crowd control to that killer instinct. J4, the flag and drag, so well at setting that up, but we immediately have the jungle answer with the Graves, which just means Purdue Varsity. They're saying we're going for the late game, no stop.
I love Graves into J4. J4 struggles so much into Graves. Whether it's early game, Graves feels pretty comfortable into it. Early game, carry jungler like the J4. Whether it's late game, where if you Cataclysm onto the Graves, great. You've just created an avenue for you to get hit by every single pellet of his shotgun. And if Graves doesn't feel comfortable, he can just dash out of the Cataclysm. So I love it. I think Graves is a great counter pick to the J4. Also, love the Amumu pick. I think you want to go something with a lot of CC. You want to go something with some tankiness for TAV. It also allows their top lane to really be flexed into anything. You could always use another tanky member on the side, or you can go carry oriented and just go for that skill for skill. So far, both teams just tickling my fancy a little bit. I like it.
Well, it looks like the second wave bans do come out, and the one varsity ban that's important to note, they're going to take away Mark Boots as a Kali. So you don't want to see that again from game number 1. And the respect bans over 2 Spiral Claws come across. Olaf and Jax taken away. So Spiral Claws will be on a different top lane champion, as the all-powerful Azir will be in the hands of Mark Boots to continue this meta train picks from the Vikings.
Love it, right? You want to ban out the Akali. Mark Boots does so well. It felt like actually didn't have as much ability to be a playmaker on the Xerath last game. And so on the Azir, there's a lot more playmaking ability with the shuffle, with the Emperor's Divide. And so taking the Akali away, you are still going to have to go against the Azir. But I think Mark Boots does super well on a pick that can be proactive in team fights. Taking him off the Akali feels good. Meanwhile, picking the Orianna for that early game poke against the Azir also feels pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good safe pick. They can also just play really heavily well into the scaling, into the team fighting that Purdue Varsity wants to draft. I'm curious what they're going to do here because Spiral Claws loves to play those carry-oriented top laners, but I feel like one doesn't fit at all into this comp. They have virtually zero frontline unless this pick is frontline inducive, right, Bonfire?
I would love to see a Gnar. I think this is a perfect Gnar angle, right? You're blinding a top laner. You don't know what you're going into. They are going to go with the Ornn, so they're taking what I imagine is their best carry off of the carry potential, and now he's going into a very difficult lane into the Fiora. They start to lose me at that point, right? I think this is a perfect Gnar angle. You have the ability to be a fantastic frontline. You also do a ton of damage. Gnar is super good in all aspects of the game. It's just kind of, you ever like max a character in an RPG and it's all even at like 7? That's basically what Gnar is. They choose not to go into it, as it actually is going to be the Gangplank. Feels a bit better for Ornn, but the scaling is there for TAV.
I don't know. I actually disagree with a lot of what you said about Gnar. I don't think he's 7s across the board because it's just so hard to time when to go mega. And I think you have a guaranteed, you're not going to have to wait for anything with Ornn for team fighting. And you do need a pure tank in this scenario. But to see what Gordo thinks, we're going to bring him back on from the analyst desk. Gordo, the big takeaway here, Spiral Claws is not going to be rocking a hard carry top laner in the same facets to the Jackson Olaf from games 1 and 2.
Yeah, that is true, and I do think that's a little bit rough given how the laning phases have gone these last few games. It has been TA Vikings really taking a huge lead through the bottom lane, and it's been Spiral Claws dominating up in the top lane, sometimes even getting over into BitBad's face and dominating him as well. That's not going to be in the claws on the Ornn this time. I wasn't even trying to make that joke, and yet here we are. As but on the other hand, that's the benefit of having like a good flexible top laner, which I don't know if Spiral Claws is that, but they certainly seem to think he is. As you can play the carries when it's relevant for your team and when it's what the team needs, but you could also play the Ornn when you've drafted no front line across the rest of the draft and you've got Orianna, Graves, Sivir, Yumi as a team fighting composition. The fact that Spiral Claws, doesn't force them to play something more carry oriented when this has been their first 4 picks, speaks well of him as a player, although it may make us feel a little bit more uneasy about Purdue's chances in this game number 3. At least it does for me. I don't want to speak for you too much, at least, Slayer. What are your thoughts there?
I wholeheartedly agree, and I think this comes down to a bit of the strategy. I think the Team Vision Viking side deserves some credit because keep in mind I'm pretty sure they got side selection for game number 3 because they had it in game 1. They get it again for game 3 here, so they're able to select. They pick red side, and they pick red side because they're like, all right, we're tired of giving Spiral Claws advantageous matchups. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set up Flying Oyster for a counter pick. Now, the fact that it ended up being him, the Spiral Claws forced onto a tank was very, very happenstance, right? But you still are allowed to give Flying Oyster a very safer lane compared to games 1 and 2.
Yeah, and hey, who knows if Flying Oyster will be able to go against Spiral Claws when Spiral Claws isn't on that carry potential. But I wholeheartedly agree with you, Gordo. I get a lot more uneasy. Spiral Claws has been the reason that they were sort of close in the early game in game 1, and I mean he was almost the sole reason they won game 2, along with Hydra Knight on the Udyr. So taking him off that playmaking damage carry champion makes me a little bit uneasy. I will also say, I think a lot of what Spiral Claus has done well is he's done a fantastic job of focusing the right people and choosing the correct fights. And so I think Udyr, or actually Ornn, excuse me, allows him that ability as well. Almost more because of the ultimate, the knockups. If you can do what you did, except for substitute damage for CC, I think you're always going to be happy. It just means we're going to have to see a lot more out of Fard and Fox, who I think when I speak for the three of us, we haven't been overtly impressed with their laning and damage so far.
Yeah, and when we look over at the TA Vikings composition coming into this game number 3, it's not like they have gone for something contrary to the team fighting comp that Purdue have brought in for themselves. They are very team fight oriented as well, but maybe a little bit less front to back. You know, they have that front to back mode that they can go into as necessary, but they're also very mobile in their carries. They have the killer instinct from Kaisa to invert the fight. They have Mark Boots, who's going to be able to slide and glide on Emperor's Divide as well to really try to create some additional angles for where these fights take place. And something that I would really criticize about TA Vikings in that game number 2 is that Mark Boots and Loki Dosi were often incredibly close to one another once these fights broke out, and that meant that once Udyr or Olaf got onto one of them, they got onto both of them in the vast majority of situations, and that would lose them the fights outright. I think that extra layer of mobility to their champions could cause them to avoid those sorts of situations, unless they over-aggress, in which case it might make those situations more prevalent and might get them caught more often. So it's really going to depend on how they want to execute here. And I think it's about time for us to get into predictions. I guess I'll go first this time. I haven't gone first the whole rest of the night. Feels like I'm due one at some point or the other. And I'm going 3 for 3, baby. I'm sticking on the TA Vikings train. I think Mark Boots' Azir is sick, and I'm gonna put all of my money in that basket. Let's go over to you, Bonfire, next.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say, Spiral Claws, you can take the dog out of a man. Oh, wait, no, you can't. Spiral Claws, Ignite Orn does not care. He just wants to go for those one-on-ones. That's the Spiral Claws I love to see. But at the end of the day, you can still go Ignite Orn. I still think I'm going to have to go TAV as well. I just think they've shown prevalence in each of the 3 games. That last game, they looked like they were on their back foot, but they still were leading at some points in the game. It just feels like Team Ambition Vikings got surprised a little bit in the second game and then turned around and drafted an absolute masterclass. So I expect to see a win from TAV.
Wow. Well, I guess if we're all gonna burn together, or we're all gonna rise above here with the predictions, because I will also be going Team Ambition Vikings. I love the points you made, Gordo, about why you like this team more versus, because they've really, I think, responded in the draft already to what they failed at. You know, they couldn't play front to back at all with the composition they had prior. It was very, very difficult to, with the Varus, with the Xerath. If you don't land long range stuns, you're not getting to any of that backline, and you had to worry about the Udyr and Olaf. Now you pick the Azir, you pick the Gangplank, which are totally comfortable doing massive AoE damage bursts that will be able to chunk down only one member that's really a tank on the side of Purdue Varsity. So I will rock with the Vikings. I will happily be proved wrong, but I think I won't be, thanks to Mark Boots and company.
All right, well, we are going to throw it to another break here while we get into our third and final game of the night. We find out if Purdue Varsity are going to keep their playoffs hopes alive or if TA Vikings are going to remain undefeated. We'll see you back here in just a couple of minutes.
Like, you know where like the cleavage is, where like the boobs touch? Or supposed to touch?
No, I've never touched a woman.
Cat Everfrost used not gonna quite hit. There goes a 5-man shield there. Bryce Rack's gonna get caught up in the baby cage. That's gonna be a 3-man shockwave in the backline with a big face breaker. That's gonna be a showstopper right there. That's
Can't get slowed when he was in Pike Steve. I've seen. Nice. Okay. Okay, then. I'm gonna try to get you the penta, honestly. You have one more? You can't die with this. Some good dog.
You can go. I mean, I have flashing. Second.
Oh my god!
Suddenly teleports
There you go for a
on the
pick
side of
one here.
CCW. They might try to go for a pick here. Box Prime has to be careful. Doesn't know they're all there. This
in
could be the
Mega.
pick they
He's
want,
in Mini.
but you have to be careful as well, though. They're gonna burst him down. Box Prime dies before anyone else can go in.
he
They
missed the
don't get the
call
second
of
call of the
Force
force dive, and here we go. Here comes the Vlad. Keep an eye on the Vlad. Vlad on the back line. There's a double knockout. Keep an eye on the Vlad. Vlad gets one of them. Vlad's able to get two of them unbound. He's gonna survive on the back end of it, but they're gonna be able to kill the Anivia. And there's two dead on the side of
Still
CCW.
going.
Can they get more? There's the Vlad. Can they get the knockup on Asthmatic Boy? Can he get the blast kill? No, he can't. He's gonna fall incredibly low. They're gonna keep going in. Team Shooter is gonna be able to get the root. They're gonna try to find more. They're gonna find everyone. But there's the kill. Unbound. He's doing it all. Unbound doing it all. Give it out. Unbound. Unbound's killing them all. Unbound is winning this game.
Okay. That's good.
They're definitely gonna get it, but I think they win this one, guys.
Nice.
Oh my god.
Get it, get it, get it, get it!
One last time we drop onto Summoner's Rift here for the pivotal game number 3 between Purdue Varsity on your blue side and Team Ambition Vikings on your red side. Purdue, the Boilermakers, if they want a shot at playoffs in Divine League, got to win this game, and the pressure could not be any more palpable.
Yeah, for both of these teams, I think, right? Because for both of them, there's a lot at stake right now. I think there's more for Purdue Varsity with the possible threat of losing playoffs, but for TAV, you want that first spot. You don't want to have to go into a hungry team in the first round and possibly get knocked out early. They want to continue their dominant ways.
Well, dominance is not really the name of the game right now. It's flags, as two separate flags dropped into that Pixel Brush on top of Spiral Claw, who will do a little bit of dancing for the the folks at home. As he doesn't land the third flag, and now Spiral Claw, he's gonna actually go for some trades here, but he might have stepped up too far. Turk is here, flash forward, bandage toss, and the king of game 2 for Varsity is shut down for first blood.
Yeah, he did not realize that the homies were there. A fantastic job by Turk to take the early aggression, the early idea that he might continue to walk up. I'm not entirely sure what Spiral Claws was doing. I think best case scenario, you get some trade on a bit bad, but you get the trade back on yourself. Worst case scenario, you have no vision, does not realize that Turk had roamed up, and that is a dead Ornn early to start it off.
Yeah, things are going to be absolutely rough in that top lane now as this Gangplank will be able to catch a couple first waves here. Spiral Claws decides not to expend the teleport, which gives him an advantage. And for once, we're saying, for the first time all game long, Team Ambition Vikings have themselves an early lead, but Hydra Knight is looking to punish that J4 pick that you talked about is so rough into Graves.
Yeah, I think Graves can win that one-on-one straight up. Hydra Knight just trying to steal away a wave, the Raptors right now, but he is going to get spotted by a bit bad. Zero's first rotation, so he has to be careful. I think he just wants to steal this away. How many of these can he actually get? Is there's the knockup by Spiral Claws?
Spiral Claws actually grabs level 2 first on Flying Oyster. A couple of good auto attacks with no Ignite procced, and you talked about it. Hydra Knight, you are alone in the company of Mark Boots, and a bit bad with the help of Azir is able to pick up a huge kill. So the Olaf would need to play a big factor. The Graves had an advantageous matchup against J4. It doesn't matter anymore once we get into the game. Is Spiral Claws Ignite ticking down? I don't know if Flying Oyster drops. No, he barely survives, and it's still TAV in a comfortable spot at 3 minutes.
Yeah, and Flying Oyster has teleport, so yeah, that feels bad. Ooh, Turk has to be careful. It feels bad for Flying Oyster to have to utilize that teleport this early, but he's not going to miss too many waves, and that's just a trade of summoners, but I think I would take that if I'm Spiral Claws, but at the end of the day, Flying Oyster not going to feel this one too bad.
The trading does not stop, though. Flying Oyster, you're too far up, sir. There's a bunch of minions doing so much damage, and now Spiral Claws is going to be able to just execute him under the turret. What a blunder from the Vikings top laner.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what was going on. This game has had blunders all across the map, starting off with Spiral Claws early, and then Hydra Knight just pushing up a little bit too far, and Flying Oyster actually, now this is horrible for him. He has to walk back into lane. He's sporting a 7 CS right now. Hydra Knight has to know that he's going to lose stuff here, as he only has 8 CS himself, does not have smite either. So if Turk and a bit bad go in, I imagine he loses this red buff, trying to kite it away, but it's just going to get reset.
Yeah, it does reset here. A bit bad doesn't have smite up just yet until right that moment he smites it, gets the knockup onto Hydra Knight. Flashless, good night to the graves. Turk picks that kill up, and now he's going to try and turn it over to Fox. He gets a bit of a slow, but they will just take the kill. You talked about this J4 was going to have a rough time against the graves. Wow, it seems like it's Freaky Friday out here, Bonfire.
Yeah, at first I felt like,
Oh my gosh, they jump onto the Yuumi. A bit bad recognizes that cat has no backup with them, but it's not enough damage to execute Yuumi just yet through the healing, so just a stopped back and a little bit of BM in the enemy jungle.
Yeah, what I was going to say was Hydra Knight actually really put himself in a difficult position with that early invade, falling behind to the J4, and then right there it just came over to Turk having that first roam. Mark Boots also there to possibly assist. You know, you look at Fox, very little mana as well, and it's an early game Orianna. Can't do that much in the fights, and so I feel like Hydra Knight actually just has to sack that, instead goes for the fight, and now it's an 0-2 Graves, finding his way back into the CS department, but so far behind already. Not what you want to see.
Well, it doesn't help that Loki Dosi also was able to get has a decent CS advantage and won't lose any of these minions on the reset. So the Kai'Sa's in a comfortable spot. The one non-comfortable spot is for the third time in a row the top lane for the Vikings, with this Gangplank now getting constantly shoved in by Ornn.
Yeah, I think Fox and Fard will actually come into a good position of their own late game, but with Spiral Claws getting a good advantage in the top lane, it actually bodes very well, because that means that XP advantage, he's already up a level.
Oh, just misses the Emperor's Divide. That would have been a kill given over onto Fox. But continue your point, Bonfire, as the Orianna survives.
I was just going to say that with Claws getting an XP advantage, it feels good on any top laner, but it feels especially good when you're on that Ornn, because you are able to get those upgrades a little bit quicker.
Ooh, Bandage Toss #1 lands on top of Sivir, and she will just flash right away. Fard respects the Kai'Sa damage, and that'll be enough distance for a bit bad to likely pick up the Drake. But, oh boy, Flying Oyster, you are not comfortable under that turret for a second, but he's actually able to get enough damage and trade Spiral Claws out. Hydra Knight will pick up the trade kill, but that play does not go the way Purdue Varsity thought it would.
Yeah, it looked dicey from the beginning. I don't think they had the damage. This is an 0-2 Graves with 21 CS, level 4, a level down on Flying Oyster, and so the damage isn't there for Spiral Claws. I imagine they wanted to do that early because, of course, the Gangplank did not have ultimate, so they wanted to push the advantage before the Gangplank hit level 6. But at the end of the day, it just turns into a one-on-one, a one-for-one. However, there might be something in the bot lane.
Turk lands the first Bandage Toss, but the stun is spell shielded away. But he goes in for the second one, and it does lock up Sivir. Below Yudosi, not enough long-range damage. Can't really follow that up, and Turk is just going to have to back away.
Yeah, I think Turk has done a fantastic job, but he just has to calm down a little bit in lane. Fard is always going to favor, or it's always going to favor the Purdue Varsity bot laner and Fard, because you're just always going to spell shield that first one. If you go in for a second one, you're walking directly into damage.
Well, now it's Loki Dosi that walks up for the Sivir at first. Yuumi tanks the first Bandage Toss coming off of the Sivir. We flash topside, and oh boy, Mark Boots has found Spirit Claws. Emperor's Divide sets him up for a huge kill. And bot side, the 5th proc of Loki Dosi's passive gives him the kill on the Sivir. And look at that wave, Bonfire.
Yeah, it's gone from bad to worse, because again, you lose the kill, doesn't feel so bad, but right now they're going to lose 2 and a wave.
Turk maybe too low to try and tank this up, but he's just body blocking, and a bit bad will tank it, and the Bandage Toss comes across. That is one sad cat, but here comes Fox. He's able to flash forward, but misses Orianna ultimate. Can't find any retribution, and boy, this is getting painful.
Yeah, but they might be able to pick up a bit bad. A bit bad has to be careful, I imagine. He's going to have the flash and grab, but actually uses his ult as Q.
He's able to just flash over the wall, though, to safety, and yeah, sure, you get a flash out, but your team is staring down a near, 3.5K gold lead at just 8 minutes.
Yeah, this is horrible for Purdue Varsity. It feels like they're just forcing these fights. They're forcing things across the map. Feels like Spiral Claws had an advantage, but now you look, he's 1-3, not what you want to see.
Well, he's going to try and turn on to Flying Oyster here. There's Call the Forge God. He's able to knock up the Ornn. There is the Graves ultimate, but it's not enough damage just yet. And now Mark Boots is here with Fox. He might get traded out. No knockup for Spirit Claws. Turk arrives to create some sort of alleviation of pressure. A good barrel chain will make sure that nobody dies somehow in that Rift Herald skirmish.
Yeah, nobody dies, but again, this was what we felt like was in the first 2 games. It was, for the first 2 games, it was Maximum just roaming up. Now it looks like it's going to be Turk roaming up. They don't get anything, and then the bot side, they're pushing in on this Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa had a very big CS lead, starting to get whittled down, and those turret plates are also getting whittled down. Also, we don't talk about it, but Rift Herald got taken for the side of Purdue Varsity, so they're doing their best to get themselves back in the game.
Well, they might try and get themselves back in the game by catching a bit bad out as he's doing his best. Spiral Claws refreshing, but towards the mid lane, that Emperor's Divide lands. Turk gets the bandage toss, and Fox, not long for this world. One shield will only save you for a couple seconds, my friend, as Mark Boots is on a killing spree, though. I talked about it. A bit bad in the opposing jungle. 1 versus 2. Hydra Knight doesn't have a lot of HP, but the TAV jungler doesn't want to risk it. He will flag and drag out of there until Turk lands a bandage toss. Curse of the Sad Mummy, but a bit bad. He doesn't have the cooldowns to come across, so it's just a back delay.
Yeah, flag and grab was just previously used, and so they're not able to go get that kill onto the Ornn, but they stop his back, make him have to use that teleport in order to pick up the wave. But again, I talk about it in the bot lane. This guy's actually doing a fantastic job just continuing to pick up these waves even without the support. Doesn't feel like Fard is comfortable enough pushing up. Actually down 600 gold. I thought that he would be up gold at this point, but doesn't feel comfortable pushing into waves, doesn't feel comfortable pushing this Kai'Sa off the tower, and because of that, it really doesn't feel like there's any cross-map opportunities for Purdue Varsity.
Yeah, they're still struggling to find some sort of way back into this game, and Bonfire, that gold lead has only gotten bigger as we reach 11 minutes.
Yeah, it's become difficult. A solo kill here could change that, but it depends on what
Flying
team.
Oyster. He's turning it back, and he drops Cannon Barrage, but he just doesn't do enough damage yet. Excuse me, that Essence Reaver doing work as Fox gets jumped on. Flash, stun from Turk. It's a beautiful pick play in the mid lane again. Deja Vu strikes. Mark Boots on a rampage.
Yeah, and Spiral used his ultimate and then topside. We didn't see it, so Flying Oyster really has nothing to be worried about now. Spiral Claws just TP'd back, and already he has to back because of the damage he had taken. So that early Ornn that you saw is no longer there. Meanwhile, Fard has to use his ultimate to possibly get out.
On the hunt, popped already a bit bad. Gets the slow across an auto to lined up Killer Instinct. The spell shield is for nothing, but enough of a heal from the Yuumi will save him from Loki Dosi and company, but that should just let them get more and more plates for the Team Ambition side.
Yeah, and again, I talked about this Kai'Sa falling behind. That is just not the case. Loki Dosi is playing this so well. Look at the plate situation. I really expected Fard to be able to push in by knowing that the jungler and Turk were not in lane, but just isn't the case, and they're going to lose Dragon. The plate situation is even. Fox able to dodge that one out, but man, look at the kill difference in the mid lane.
Yeah, that's a Mythic versus Components right there, the damage difference. So you can see that Mark Boots is putting a stamp on this game as the first play from Purdue Varsity will finally come across as the Dragon is secured for a bit bad, but they should be able to get a lot of plates off this topside turn. They might even pick it up as Flying Oyster is continually backed off by Hydra Knight from that topside. But if you're gameplay, totally fine playing this side, playing the weak side, right, Bonfire?
100% Gangplank is the weak side king, and you're giving all of this gold to Ornn, who might actually just fumble it right now with Turk and a bit bad coming up.
Yep, they do knock down the turret. They're going to try and kill off GP before the cavalry shows up, but a bit bad is here. There is a beautiful collateral, but Curse of the Sad Mummy will lock them both down, and this J4 will pick up the 2-for-1 on the top side.
Yeah, I will say Mark Boots has to be careful. Yeah.
Flash command. Shockwave is matched by another Flash. He is 0 for 2 in this game, Bonfire. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, I don't think that's entirely his fault. I think you always know that it's going to be a trade of flashes in the mid lane. I will say Mark Boots losing his flash doesn't feel nearly as bad as Fox losing his flash just because of the immobility of the Orianna. If the Orianna now gets put in a Cataclysm, that is a dead robot. Meanwhile, Mark Boots does feel like he has a bit more mobility, so Flash for flash, yeah, you might think, oh yeah, we got the Azir's flash, but I really don't think it favors the side of Purdue Varsity.
Well, we'll see if they can utilize that little bit of momentum to turn this game around, as they're still staring down a 5K gold deficit. Fox trying to get some minions back out towards the chickens, but Mark Boots stole the big one away just to continue to push this mid lane lead to the limits.
Oh, Fard.
Oh boy, Far jumped on from the brush. That is Cannon Barrage over top. Killer Instinct does force the Kaisa into an unfavorable position, and it will go 1-for-1. Nice final chapter stun there. So a bit of a blunder. Does give a good kill over, but it does go onto the Yuumi.
Yeah, it goes on to the Yuumi, and this is what I'm talking about with Fox not having flash.
Oh my god, Emperor's Divide. The Liamdri's burn is just so deadly. One more auto. Nope, it's going to be a soldier shuffle to finish it off. They are controlling the enemy jungle so well. And now Maximum, he has nobody to jump onto. He's executed by a bit bad, who's now on a rampage and sets his sight on stealing away even more camp.
Ornn could be problematic. There's no flash on the Azir. Azir does have the ability to get away, but with ultimate, along with the knockup, Mark Boots has to be careful.
Mark Boots does have to be careful, but he's able to set up his own defensive turret, and that's enough to assuage Spiral Claws.
Yeah, Ornn not able to do anything right now, and I just gotta say the cross-map play from TAV has been absolutely exceptional. It doesn't feel like there's any numbers advantage for Purdue Varsity, and we're just gonna see that again.
Oh boy, Fard, you get stunned up. You can pop the spell shield anytime you want, but it won't do anything. Is a bit bad on a rampage now. Will bop the Sivir to death. That is an unstoppable J4 in the jungle as TAV push their gold lead continually, but towards the top side, it's the Graves Yuumi combo to blow Gangplank up, so there's something to get back towards the top side.
Yeah, they're trying to do some cross-mapping. I think it's actually very good, especially with objective bounties. You get that kill, you get Orianna on a wave, which feels so good because it really feels like Fox hasn't had any waves that he feels comfortable on so far, and so getting Fox onto a wave, you feel good. You're able to take the Rift Herald as well. Have to be careful right now.
Bit bad sporting a really high bounty. He's knocked up by Call of the Forge God, has to flash away from the final chapter stun. He will survive, but on the bot side, I was going to talk about the tier 2 turret that went down, and I thought Mark Boots was going to get executed Bonfire, but just so shifty on that Shuriman.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. No flash, you still feel very comfortable just dashing yourself away. Meanwhile, Orianna, you just don't feel comfortable at all. You don't feel comfortable if you're Fard as well.
Yep, Fard is to pop on the hunt, but the Cataclysm locks the Sivir in to the death zone. Flying Oyster, 1Q, 1 kill for the Gangplank.
Yeah, just no flash, just barely got it up right there, and so I'm not able to get out. Really good job for the side of TAV finding this AD carry again. And you look at those threats that you saw that we were talking about early in the game. We talked about how we wanted to see Spiral Claws on a carry because he's what he's been able to do in these past 2 games. The carries that they've been given for Purdue Varsity, 0-7 combined.
Oh boy, Loki Dosi doing his best bait impression as, oh, the Gangplank damage has arrived, folks. That's a double over to the Voidian AD carry, and now Spiral Claws not on a damaged top laner. All he could do is watch as Kaisa picks up a triple kill in the mid lane.
Yeah, it's gone from bad to worse. Lokadosi 4-1-3, Mark Boots 5-0-1. A bit bad, not even on a carry, still sporting a 5-0-5, and quietly Turk is 3-0-11. All 3 of those members have done a fantastic job of moving around the map, and they're just allowing Gangplank to free farm. 96 farm isn't really what you want to see on the Gangplank, but I think Spiral Claws made it very difficult early game. Now that early game is gone, it is now a 9,000 gold lead. This game is all but done and dusted, it feels like.
Seems very anticlimactic compared to the game 2 we had, but TAV aren't messing around anymore, Bonfire.
Yeah, 100% not. They're the #1 team in the league for a reason. They play incredibly strong across the map. Mark Boots has to be a little careful with Hydra Knight coming up, but seems to realize that he might be being collapsed on.
Yep, he does do that shifty dash again to get away from Hydra Knight, so no flash. Actually, he did have flash up that time, but it's not needed as Mark Boots will stay perfect in this game. Another person perfect on the scoreline is a bit bad, who might pick a fight with Hydra Knight, who does have 2 items now, and this Graves is starting to pack a punch, so maybe that is a silver lining for Purdue Varsity.
Maybe. I mean, a bit bad just backed right in front of his face and then used his flag and dash to get away, so I don't think he's too worried. This is a really good Rift Herald in the sense that hopefully you're able to take down the mid lane, get yourself a little bit more map control, but they're getting flanked.
Oh my god, teleports behind, sets a turret up. This lane is mine, Mark Boots declares as he goes dominating onto Hydra Knight, and Loki Doki along with that J4 Cataclysm executes everybody else on Summoner's Rift, rocking the blue colors. Maximum runs into his own death. That's 4 for TAV on the flank.
Yeah, they grab 4, and Spiral Claws just has to watch as their base gets completely torn apart. Baron going to be up in 45 seconds, but they're just going to continue to push right now. They don't have any waves in top and bot being pushed in too far, so they're just going to throw Lokadosi and Turk in the mid lane. But they're pushing the waves right now. They're taking everything out of the jungle, completely draining Purdue Varsity from everything that they had. It's just terrible. It's a 14,000 gold lead for the side of TAV. This is a game that I would FF in solo queue at 15.
Well, actually, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see it if we can get a replay of that, because Mark Boots' intellect to go for that sort of flank was just so ingenious. I mean, he teleports behind, and then he sets up his own turret so that they can't even run back into him. It's just so smart. As we do see a potential catch out coming here, a bit bad, real close to being stopped on his port, and he is. Mark Boots will also stop his because they'll try to turn it, but a bit bad. Flag and drags to create some distance. Call the Forge God will not even be recast.
Yeah, the flag and grab just gets him out, and I think that might be a warning shot from Spiral Claws saying, you know what, I can't catch you. I will just shoot this back into my own base. This game feels doomed at this point. 14,000 gold lead. If they're going to bet back into this game, they need to find picks. They needed to get that kill onto the Jarvan and possibly look for a quick Baron there or maybe a tower, but they were not able to get it. Fox is dead.
Oh, Fox. Oh, man, Shockwave will only delay the inevitable as he flashes into Cannon Barrage. Loki Dosi is dominating, but will he get punished? Not if Hydra Knight gets blown up that quickly. Spiral Claw will be able to set up the shutdown, but Turk trades out Fard, who took down the Kaisa, and now with J4 and Flying Oyster in hand, that Cataclysm will only set up the near demise of Purdue Varsity. They dive under the turret. This Yumi will be soon to fall. Flying Oyster, Prowler Claw into a kill. Spiral Claws falls, and that is an ace for TAV.
Yeah, they're styling on him at that point. They lose 1 for that, the Kaisa. A big shutdown over for the side of Purdue Varsity, but you know, what does it cost? It costs everybody on your team. It's going to cost your mid inhib as well. Baron's everything but a formality at this point. TAV just need to make sure they don't push up too far.
Yep, exactly. They don't want the same blunder that they saw in game number 2, where they could have, you know, potentially, they tried to end the game, but they were actually nearly ace, and that set the snowball up for Purdue Varsity. With such a comfortable goal lead, they're just going to take their sweet time in game number 1.
Yeah, and Mark Boots is so far ahead right now. He has 235 CS. That's by far and away the most in the game. Over 10 CS a minute right now. 6-0-1. And then you kill, I mean, hey, you kill the Azir. Is there a way back into this? No, there's an 8-2-5 Kaisa.
Oh my god, Hydra Knight nearly burns down, but it's a flag and drag Cataclysm for a bit. Bad to find a kill. This Gangplank barrels everybody up and gets himself his own triple kill, and you blink, you miss it. TAV ace, and that's got to be game with nobody in the base now for Purdue Varsity.
Absolutely dominant affair. They left no questions for us. We were a little worried that we could be wrong after that game 2 blunder, but man, they proved us right. TAV is legit.
TAV move on to a 3-0 record, which in a 5-week split virtually locks up a playoff spot. They'll have a little fun diving into the Nexus to try and pick up an extra kill, and they won't find it, but they will find the opposing team's Nexus. TAV knocked down Purdue Varsity 2-1 in our best of 3 series, and we bring in Gordo for one last time to break down a very lopsided final game of the night.
Yeah, I'm in the background here trying to pick some highlight clips, and we might just stick with 2 this time around. As a lot of just pickoffs there, a lot of 2 for 0s, a lot of 1 for 0s across the map for the TA Vikings, really showing up in this game number 3. You can tell maybe a little bit of a chip on their shoulder after how that game number 2 ended up going. Fantastic performances across the board, and they made some efforts towards that gangplank, but they didn't all end up the way you wanted, and you really can't snowball on the Ornn the way that you maybe can on some of the other champions that we've gotten to see in that top lane throughout the evening. So, all in all, a pretty good matchup for TA Vikings. A great series, though, from both teams. Glad that Purdue were able to say that they were able to compete here. But let's take a look at some of these TA fights. Starting off in the mid lane here. Bonfire, break this one down for us.
Yeah, if I imagine, yep, it's the one that I thought. I was about to say this was just TA Vikings dominance right here. Lokadozi plays the best bait of all time. I'm all alone. I'm a Kaisa. Dashes away from Hydra Knight's damage. Spiral Claws tries to get the knockup, but it does not matter. And then the Gangplank ultimate on top of it just secures a double kill for Lokadozi. And at this point, Spiral Claws is saying, well, I've got no longer a team. I'm going to get CC'd forever. This game is difficult.
Yeah, and they're already so far ahead by the time we get there. I mean, Slayer, every single play seems like it was favoring TAV there. It was so hard for anything on the side of Purdue to actually get going.
Oh, it was so difficult. And it really speaks to their early game, Gordo. I mean, we talked about how some of these matchups are unfavorable for guys like this J4 in the mid lane. We can switch up. A bit bad J4 in the jungle versus the Graves from Hydra Knight. But they said, all right, Bonfire and Slayer, you guys think we're going to have a tough time? I'll just completely shut down anything the Graves wants to do. He had 8 CS at about 3.5 minutes because he got invaded. He got counter invaded once to die. Then he got invaded again twice to die. He just had no way to do anything in that game. And if you give a team like TAV a basic 4v5 for the early game, they'll make you pay just like they did for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Throwing it over to a little flank action from Mark Boots here. You can see how they were able to execute on a couple more of these fights. The Rift Herald getting thrown down in a mid. This is one of the few objectives they were really able to pick up on Purdue's side, but Turk is right on top of them already, setting up for Mark Boots to go in for this play. A great placement of that ward. Not sure exactly who threw it down, but really sets up for them to be able to make something happen here. Mark Boots picks up one. Loki is over on the other side to keep the fight going, and the rest of the team can collapse on these members in the mid lane. They get the charge off of the Rift Herald, can't even claim the turret, and it's just an even bigger lead for the TA Vikings.
Yeah, this game felt doomed from a lot of different angles. I think everybody played their role incredibly well. The only lane that was possibly in contention was the Gangplank Ornn lane, and that's simply because it's a lot of one-on-one. Everywhere else across the map, Turk had first roam. A bit bad, felt like he was always in the jungle of the Graves. It really felt like Purdue Varsity just didn't have any map stake. They had no vision. They constantly were getting invaded. 2v3, 3v2. I mean, it didn't feel like they had any grip on that game.
Yeah, there was just no points where I felt like they could crawl back into it. And, we also talked, Hydra Knight got very limited in that game. Box, couple early command shockwaves they tried, maybe got flashed away from and didn't land. And we are that far behind in the Oriana versus Mark Boots' Juggernaut Azir. Just not enough damage on, the robot to make any sort of impact. So great job neutralizing 2 members of Purdue Varsity to make sure they punch a ticket to 3-0.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we got one more clip for you guys tonight, just showing how big the gold lead really ended up being there. It's another potential pickoff from Purdue Varsity on to the bot lane duo. Show us how it happened, Slayer.
Well, it's basically called Loki Dosi thinks he can 1v9 because he actually originally, I believe, he's going to walk over here and he's going to line up a really good killer instinct. He knocks down the W, jumps right on top of the Oriana. Command Shockwave, like I said, not enough damage. They get the first kill. But here comes the entirety of Purdue Varsity. Turk does a great job creating distance for this Kaisa. That's a 4-man curse of the Sad Mummy. He's able to pick up the double kill on the Hydra Knight. And sure, you finally get this Kaisa. But Turk just killed off your 80 carry. And now a bit bad is here along with Flying Oyster. It takes a little bit to get down there, but they do end up diving under this turret. They're just so far ahead. You slap that Ornn with your wallet, and they pick up 4 kills. It just highlights how much of a lead this team Ambition for Vikings team had, and boy, did Turk absolutely style this game with the movement.
Yeah, no, a nice little jailbreak maneuver there as well from the Ornn, managing to bust out through the Cataclysm walls. But at the end of the day, it just ends up not being enough, and it ends up being a 2-1 victory for Team Ambition Vikings, keeping themselves up at the top of the standings at 3-0. Probably locking themselves a spot in the postseason. I don't think you can go 3-1 and miss in this format. That would be quite the big surprise for me. So congratulations to them in that department. And condolences to Purdue. Hope that they are able to show up and still have a fantastic game for us next week as we round out the regular season. But that is going to round out this week of the Risen Divine League. So thank you all for spending the evening with us and checking out tonight's close 3-game series. Thank you to Bonfire and Slayer for joining us on the cast. Thank you to Caddy on production, and have yourselves a fantastic night. We will see you next week.